Welcome back, esports fan. Gil Frost here with ZP and Hex, and we are one match in to day 1 of week 2. So that's day 4, if you do the math, of the Overwatch Carbon series. And already, I think we've gotten some better matches. Last week, we had a few relatively one-sided matches, and I'm really excited for today because we had Luminosity, who actually has had some strong showings, but just hasn't been able to execute. True to form against Hammer's last match, but I really want to look at Renegades versus compLexity coming into this next one because this is actually a matchup that we saw last night. So I'd like to hear you talk to Torque, right, Hex? What did he have to say about their match that we didn't see on stream?
Well, that's because it was a match that we didn't see last night. It was off
I guess we
stream,
didn't
so
see it.
we were
happened.
We were looking through results, and I almost wanted to double check on things. I'm like, I don't believe that this is what happened because compLexity has been struggling. There's no other way to say it. They're going through roster changes. They're having a difficult time, and the fact that they beat Renegades, and one of our tropes has been run Pharah against compLexity. They haven't been having great results against it, but the fact they beat Renegades was stunning to me. They beat them 2-1, and I think their answer essentially was something we saw earlier. Pharah v. Pharah. Renegades is going to run Pharah, and they ran a Pharah back at it, worked out for them.
I remember we were sitting over there to the green screen that isn't on camera, and we were just sitting there looking at the results going, wait a second, compLexity beat Renegades. How did this happen? Renegades just had a really good week in the OCS. And the answer to that is that they did involve a big roster change. We talked about it a little bit earlier in the broadcast, but KO and Chow, they're gone. In now, Decop of former Spicy Boys fame and Bishu of many games fame, whether it be League of Legends, a little stint in Heroes of the Storm. He's done a bit of everything, but now he came in on Zarya and actually had a pretty good showing yesterday in the Overwatch Monthly Melee. So it feels like compLexity has recovered a little bit from their roster losses. Now they've found two people that gel with the team better than what we saw back in week 1.
And it seems like, and maybe it's their experience with other teams, even other games, just being in the competitive environment that allowed them to, right off the bat, actually have a much bigger impact than we've been seeing from previous compLexity rosters. But the roster I want to look at right now is actually Renegades. Let's take a look at Renegades' roster. We'll come back to compLexity in a second, but the away team coming into this game is Renegades. Looking at that roster, what are some big names that pop out?
Well, we're going to talk about Saipei a little more in depth, and we talk a lot about Genjis lately because Genji is very firmly in the meta, also very firmly in the Korean meta where you can build a team around it, and some of the question marks have been about his Genji play. I've also been kind of impressed with Saipei's Winston play, to be honest. His defensive Winston dive play is great on the chase, great at taking people down, but I know, ZP, you still have some concerns about his Genji play?
Somewhat. I mean, Saipei is a question mark for me. When you look at his play back with Season 7, there is enormous potential in what he can do, and I don't think he's lived up to that potential just yet with Renegades, even the games where they've done well, although I think the reason for that goes a little bit deeper. I think that clearly a lot of effort and star power goes into supporting Mangachu. If you're throwing all your heals, all your shields in the Mangachu, you're not giving Saipei the level of support that he used to have back on Season 7. So I don't know if it's a fair shake to say that Saipei is underperforming. We know he's capable of being very explosive. I don't know if he's just been put in the right situation for it. I wonder if it's just a more meta thing in regards to Renegades where maybe draw off a Mangachu in some fights and put all your marbles behind Saipei.
Well, one thing that question I have then on that is let's compare their threats. So we were talking about that a little earlier with, well, how do their DPS players just line up from a theoretical perspective and then retrospectively, well, how do they actually perform? And so we've got Jesus, Mangachu, and then, of course, Saipei, which we're going to continue to talk about. And then across on the other side, you've got Torque and Nicholas. How are these lineups matching up?
Well, I think certainly you look at Renegade's recent history back in the OCS and even parts during the Overwatch Monthly Melee and group stages, Jesus has had a pretty good week. He's had moments where he's come in as a tracer and made us think, wow, he actually could be one of the top tracers in the game. Of course, does flex Roadhog quite a bit. He does seem to be a little bit more streaky and having good days and bad days, but if you look at the triple threat of Renegades, as it were, if you put Mangachu at number 1 with the fair play we've seen, Jesus is certainly right now number 2 with how he's been playing in recent times.
Well, you want to talk about streaky, you can talk about the DPS for complexity. That has been their story for a long time. It continues to be their story. I think Nicholas has been a little more consistent for me overall. I believe he'd be the one on the Pharah. They also have Torque, who has a lot of players that he can run. He can run the McCree, though we rarely see it. He's been running more Tracer lately, and of course that goes back to the days where they both run Tracer and they were very good at it. I want to see a little more consistency out of Torque. Of course, they don't run Sombra anymore, and that has been a big question. Their response to that was, look, teams adapted. Teams understood that we ran Sombra a lot, and they got better at it. And it's difficult to run Sombra, who requires a great deal of coordination. We saw that even going back to Liquid's games last week, that you can run a Sombra and get EMPs, and if no one's there to follow up, there was no point in running the EMP anyway. So that's the reason they're not running Sombra. Torque now finding his way on new characters. He'll switch off a Tracer on a 76 at times, but I do need to see more consistency from that DPS overall. But they do have days where they could beat anyone.
There's no doubt about it. And I mean, complexity, they've been in the pack for a long time, which is more than many teams in Overwatch can say. Reworks or no reworks, they've sort of been in this top 4 to top 6 in North America. But it's also stressful for them as a team because we have been seeing more new teams come up out of the trenches. Immortals, of course, they started out as Sody Pop, suddenly one of the top contenders in the scene. Hammers almost literally coming out of nowhere from their Bird Noises days to be a much bigger threat in the scene. So complexity, in a sense, they're not only fighting to try and get to the top, they're also fighting this fight to keep the status quo and keep relevant as they rebuild in the middle of the OCS.
Well, let's take a look at the player to watch then, as we're going to be trying to figure out our first map, which will be selected by complexity going into this matchup. But the Renegades player to watch this game is going to be Saipei. We touched on it earlier, his Genji play. What are we expecting from Saipei, and how is that going to impact Renegades' performance?
Yeah, I spoiled it. I brought him up that he was going to be our player to talk about. My fault. I do just have questions overall in his pool, and I think you bring up a very salient point of he's used to being the guy, the all-star on a team. When teams could build around one guy, and you can do it at little lower tiers, you can have that one guy on Citizen 7, and I think it's a valid point that he might be having a hard time adjusting to playing second fiddle. I still think that there is a place for him on this team. It might not be on the Genji. Maybe he is more of a flex player. I do think that he had great moments on Winston overall, which again is a weird pool to have. I'm a Genji and a Winston player.
So just to touch on that one aspect of teams focusing on one player too much, I think it's been an endemic issue in Overwatch for quite a while. Obviously, you see it more in triple DPS because you do have 3 threats. Who do you focus all the rest? But you can go all the way back to the days of NRG where you would see all the support going behind Seagull and then really good players like Enigma and Gods struggling to make their own opportunities at times because they're not getting the help from the rest of their team. I think that's sort of a science in Overwatch where you try and figure who do you throw all your faith behind? And I think the answer is you need to switch it up. Maybe don't throw it all behind Mangachu some fights. Find fights where you really power up Jesus or find fights where you really power up Saipei. Mix it up for teams. Don't make it very obvious.
Well, I'll tell you, we're going to find out how these teams react to that coming up in just a bit. We're still waiting on the initial map. So let's take a look at Complexity's player to watch. And that is going to be Torque. So we talked a little bit about Nicholas and his consistent impact over the last couple of weeks, especially. But let's talk about Torque, because with multiple threats on the table, you've got to have that at least a second threat. So how has Torque been doing that, ZP?
So Torque has been interesting watching him swap up from hero to hero. It's just interesting to see him try and branch out to other heroes now that he's not playing Sombra every game. But it's a mixed bag with him. I think it always has been. He's never been the player where you look at him and he's just annihilating everyone. I think the closest he got to that was back in the double Tracer meta, way back in the day when there wasn't one hero limit. You saw him and Nicholas make their name as the TGO brothers in the old Code 7 team. I don't know, and I can't really tell you offhand why he does have his good games and his bad games when on things other than Sombra. There's probably a more complicated reason for it, but offhand, it just some days he's good, some days he's bad.
I need to see him play McCree really well. I think that's been missing from their team for a while. A small story, they were playing a team, I believe Chorfor was in the skies as Pharah, and neither Nicholas or Torque could play an effective McCree on it. Harblue switched off when Harblue was on this roster, did one life as McCree, killed Chorfor, went back onto Roadhog, of course. But that was just a sign that when you have both your players who main your DPS and neither of them can run a capable McCree, that's worrisome, and I need to see some McCree there. to the levels where we saw that McCree can cut down a Pharah. We saw AKM do it within 10 seconds the other day. I need to see some sort of McCree play out of Torque, I think.
I was very glad to see AKM run the McCree in the Overwatch monthly melee yesterday because even heroes of McCree like Grim Reality have been running him way less in the last week. There's almost been a regression where people have stopped running him. Now, I think they stopped running him in part because it's hard as McCree to deal with 3 flanking DPS threats.
Yeah.
And yet, on the same note, you take a look at how AKM handled the McCree. He played pretty well. It's still very effective. It just teams are almost regressing in a sense to more comfort picks in the last week or so. I do hope we see a McCree, and it'd be cool if Torque could come out with a strong McCree. We'll see if that's actually the case.
Yeah, because they both play hit scan champions, or heroes rather, like Soldier. And so how is that not translating over, at least on some level, to the McCree? Well, King's Row is going to be the first map. Are we going to see McCree on King's Row?
It's possible. We've seen McCree do well here in the past, although generally teams have been favoring more Soldier recently, so we're probably more likely to see the Soldier defensive play as opposed to McCree. But again, I would be thrilled to see more McCree play. Please bring it back out because right now, I don't know, McCree is off in the saloon or something. He hasn't been in games as often.
No.
Yeah. No,
My
you
simple
don't
answer.
want
No,
that?
you're
Alrighty.
not going to see McCree on defense on King's Row, or not from compLexity, I don't.
Yeah, and with the multiple threats, and well, it's just the fact that especially since compLexity hasn't been playing, I wouldn't be surprised if we see zero McCree here on King's Row. He may be opting for sunnier pastures as we are going into the first map between the Detroit Renegades and compLexity. Take it away, gents.
Well, I'm okay with going to King's Row now here, Hex, because we did get our opening game on Hollywood, so you know what, maybe a little bit too much sun, got burned a bit. Now, taking a look here at the dark and gritty streets of King's Row, and Hex, what are we seeing from this compLexity defense? I'll tell you one thing we're seeing, though, Torque on the 76.
Torque and Nicholas have very similar pools. They feel comfortable switching off one or the other. The one time that you will see Torque on the 76 definitely is when Nicholas will run the Pharah in the skies, but they've always had a very interchangeable pool, which perhaps has hurt them, not really identifiable as being all-stars on either of those things, except for Tracer. I think both of them, if you put them to the fire and tested them, would both say that their Tracers are probably their best, but that's what you're seeing, a defensive Tracer, a defensive 76 from both Nicholas and Torque. They also are going to run a defensive Winston. Bijou, most of yesterday played Zarya, so we'll see how his Winston does.
And just a note here in terms of support coming out for Renegades, they are coming out with the Mercy, which makes Mangachu really strong, but means that Saipei can't get long-range heals from an Ana or Zen. So in terms of supporting their players, they're putting a lot more on Mangachu to get things done. Saipei more of a distraction. Saipei actually getting close to getting down, almost put down her lamp, but here comes Mangachu into the back lane, supported, immediately takes down Shake, but Torque trying to bring it back. Not necessarily one here from Renegades, but anytime you lose Nana early, it's a pretty good start for the offense.
It is going to be difficult because that's part of the damage that you want to put onto this Pharah. Torque running away, not able to escape though, as Mangachu still getting damage boosted over top, and now he has taken down 2 potential answers to his Pharah.
And there wasn't an answer to him really in that. He was able to run through mostly uncontested, got the Ana down early, which could have helped as Nicholas just takes a rocket to the feet. Very strong opening here from the Renegades, and they should be able to get this first point.
Well, they're going to get this first point, and they're chasing, going very deep as Saipei, or Decop rather, comes back in on the charge, almost gets himself out of position, but they will be able to reestablish perhaps over there. And there's nothing more to say than Mangachu is very good at Pharah, and despite beating Renegades yesterday, I still have questions of compLexity's ability to effectively and consistently deal with a Pharah.
We'll see what options they have in their tool belt right now. They have had Torque as the main person dealing with it. He hasn't dealt it very well. Now, Shake helps out in that case, able to take down Mangachu, which will delay the offense a bit here. You notice from Renegades, though, even though they lose 1 or 2, they're still in the fight, perhaps foolishly, as they do have to back out and reset.
Well, losing 2 means they will absolutely reset, and I think maybe that's what compLexity wants to do. Just tell Shake to focus a little more on helping out the DPS, take down the Pharah, and they don't want to give up the other hero's potential to get picks in the back line or to be that consistent damage dealer on the Soldier 76. So it's a trade-off that you make for compLexity. Clearly it has worked against Renegades. As we mentioned, they beat them 2-1 yesterday.
Well, compLexity has a lot of tools going into this next fight. 5 ultimates at the ready. Saipei gonna try and open things up here. Triangling gets on the Torque immediately, so suddenly there's hope for Renegades in this fight. Jesus Mangachu falling through, and it's 3-1 in the kills, despite all the power compLexity had available to them. They didn't take the initiative, and Renegades punishes them for it pretty heavily. Now, Bijou's still in and around this, but with only Tracer and Winston up and around, it's not going to be easy for them to actually secure control of this card.
It is nice, though, for compLexity to have these two new stand-ins get 3 kills on their own when everything else breaks down. It does give them a level of trust, as Decop got a couple kills early, as did Bishu, so that buys them some time, much needed time for them to be able to reset up and contest. Second, Torque busts out the tactical visor, gets a boost on it, but here comes a sound barrier to negate most of that damage.
See, he wasn't able to use his tech visor in the last fight because how early Saipei took him out, and it was still kind of rushed here. He got very little from it. Now down 3 teammates, make it 4. He can't fight here anymore. He has to back out to health pack. Maybe he catches Saipei off guard, but not enough to turn this fight back in his favor. Mangachu being relentless, and this is gonna be a pretty quick second point take here from the Renegades.
It's about as quick as you can take it, and despite the tanks, the new tanks for compLexity, buying enough time for them to get back in that fight, yes, I do agree with you, ZP, that they did probably rush that one going into it, so now they are stuck on last. Nicholas remaining on the Tracer, has a pulse bomb, looking to turn this fight. He's behind the Rhine, there's a nice stick.
Well, that's one way of getting the defense off on the right foot. Now that they got the early pickoff, they should be able to pressure this a little bit more aggressively. As come in, oh no, the counter Earth Shatter coming in. Got knocked down too. Renegade's not done yet. Saipei making bank in the back. 2 kills off that Dragon Blade, cutting off the support to the remainder of this compLexity defense. And that's a very swift strike. And Renegades now 1 fight away, Hex, from finishing off with a time that could be over 3 minutes.
They are flying through King's Row for sure. They have faced very little resistance in the way of compLexity. Perhaps Decop can do something here. Nicholas going to switch over to a 3rd tank as Bishu is on the Zarya, just trying to put more meat on the ground, perhaps in answer to Saipei. But so far, nothing has gone right for compLexity.
Jesus in the back line, a beautiful pulse bomb immediately removes Bishu from the equation, but the Earth Shatter comes in from Decop. We saw him have great Earth Shatters this weekend. This one, not an exception, knocks down 2. Saipei tries to turn it around, not going to happen. And though it's bloody, this should give compLexity some much-needed stabilization. Although Sherlocky, tell him that, taking the role of DPS Ana, he finds 2 there, Hex.
Sherlocky is doing a lot of work. Shake does see that example and comes back into it, though, keeping his Zarya alive, getting very scrappy here on the point, but the numbers are there for the defense to hold. Here comes Mangachu, practicing perhaps a day early for next patch.
Well, the Bastion is coming in, and sometimes it catches teams off guard. I'm not necessarily sold on the Bastion selection right here, but if nothing else, it's going to make compLexity think twice. Now, while they're on this here, this actually creates a much better distraction for Saipei. You do have to give the Bastion an undue amount of attention, which means that Saipei, once he gets healed up, now that Sherlocky is on Ana and can heal up from long range, maybe he can find room in the backfield to work with.
Well, this is something that Renegades has done before, but generally they're in a much more advantageous position to get their Bastion set up over there. A grab is going to come out. Bastion trying to rotate up top, and Torque takes him out. Torque is going to bust this visor out too, just to finish off the fight. Perhaps not needed. Maybe a little overkill on these ultimates, but it's been a while since compLexity has cleanly won a fight. They're probably okay with throwing everything they have in there. Looks like we want some hero switch-ups as well.
Well, for fans of Bastion, it's sad times because Mangachu, he's off the Bastion. He went only on it for a 1-fight switch-up. They had enough time in reserve that they could try that and have room to fall back on if it failed, and they do have 4 ultimates going in this next fight, so let's see actually in rough shape. Jesus, looking for the opening pulse bomb. Gonna whiff it early on, but they throw in the nano boost onto Juvenile. He dives right in. 2 unanswered kills, and suddenly, this is bad for Shake. He's surrounded by enemies on all sides. Does Sleep Dart or no? He's not living through that, as suddenly Renegades on the verge of still setting a pretty good time here in Kings.
A really nice hook there will drop Decop into the lava below, as it looks like this Renegades team is going to close it out despite the Bastion play not necessarily working. Torque is still on here, buying some time. He switched up to D.Va rather early, knowing that they were going to need the stall out, still alive.
He got Mangachu. That's huge. That's not just D.Va stall, that's also potentially opening the door to coming back here as a defense and holding this off. Decop gets his mirror in Juvenile. Hex, is this happening? Renegades trying desperately to hold on. They have the fishing Dragon Blade here from Saipei, and that creates enough space for them to cap it out, but that was compLexity buying 30 seconds there, almost out of nothing.
Glimmers of hope for sure. A couple things to note. Generally, you can run Bastion at the end of King's Row, very similar in how you can run a McCree at the end of King's Row, but it has to be a closeout pick, and I think they overestimated their position there running the Bastion. You see, they never got him into the position you want. You want him dead-centered, looking at both of the spawn doors as they come out, much like a McCree. Silver lining for compLexity, very solid tank plays. A lot of standout moments for Decop there, especially Bishu not playing as well as he did yesterday, but Decop had his moments again.
He did have his moments. I will say this for Renegades, though. I admire the tenacity in trying to make Bastion work. But if you look at objectively in terms of success rate versus failure rate, at least in televised matches like this, it's a pretty low success rate. You're looking at maybe 25% max to win one fight, if that. I don't think that it's high enough to really justify even going for that option under most circumstances. Not with how well Renegades plays with it, which is not very well at all.
I completely disagree, ZP, because it's so cool when it works. It's so cool.
I mean, you do get style points when it works, but on the other hand, the owners of Detroit Renegades probably want more decisive W's. That's all I'm saying.
Well, I appreciate you, Mangachu. I appreciate Mangachu at least trying it. He's always tried stuff like that, though. One of the originators of the Bastion strat. Him and Surefour always come to mind when it comes to those things.
Tea time with Tracer and Winston right now. It's in Kings Row. I mean, Winston has traveled there many times when he's not off in Gibraltar eating peanut butter and swinging on his tire.
I was going to say, how does tea go with peanut butter?
It probably doesn't. That's why he doesn't eat peanut butter in Kings Row, or at least that's my headcanon.
Well, all right. Speaking of headcanons, Nicholas is on the Widowmaker. I'm not sure what that thing on her head is. It's mostly eyesights. It'd be cool if it was a cannon, perhaps in a newer patch, but Nicholas going to try to get one of these early picks from Widow early on.
See just how effective that is. Nicholas, of course, did see a lot of Widow from him way back in the day, seeing a lot more from it recently in the new age of Widowmaker, and yet doesn't get what he's looking for early on, and I think he's just swapping here. He was just going for the early pickoff and nothing more.
Well, it's fine. It's at very least a very quick swap. He's going to go over to Tracer instead. Mangachu running a defensive Pharah. He's going to be sitting in the window. Mangachu has a lease up there. I think he's contractually obligated to sit in that window on every hero. But they're going to be going for a pretty deep dive. Mangachu gives his life for it, though, so the trade kind of working out for offense, so they don't lose much more.
Well, he tasted the Helix Rocket from Torque. There was a well-placed Helix Rocket, and now Torque creating an opportunity to come in. Not able to finish a kill there onto Saipe. He was so low, and yet now healed up to full, thanks to the throughput of Ana. That's rough there for compLexity. That could have won them the point outright. Now they have to fight it more normally. Decop falling early on off that charge, and suddenly Saipe, who should be dead right now, coming in with the Ana boost, gonna pick up Bishu. That can show you just how often fights in Overwatch come down to just a slight amount of damage.
I talked about his chasing Winston before the match started, and his chasing Winston on King's Row specifically has gotten kill after kill. Saipe's defensive Winston has just been a thing to behold. Mangachu going back up to his apartment in the window.
Mangachu going for a little bit more aerial defense here, and for Renegades, look at this. Saipe comes in from the back once more. Mangachu diving it, but it's Torque. Flanking Tac Visor at the ready. Finds Juvenile early on. I'm not sure it's going to be enough. Even though he's taking down Mangachu, the offense has lost quite a bit here. It will help them going in on the next fight, but Saipe popping Primal Rage, this could still drag on for quite some time.
Definitely could. There goes a sound barrier to make sure that even the Primal Rage stays alive. Decop dies there very early. I wouldn't have minded a retreat there after they got 3 kills. Just use the advantage of your closer spawn to get back in there, but as it is, defense going to be fully set up for this next push.
Defense gets to recover here, and that's big for Renegades, and unfortunate for compLexity, given that they did have a few pickoffs. Gonna come down here to Bishu. We saw Bishu have some degree of patience just this weekend on his Gravitons. We'll see if he can read the lay of the land and find that important Graviton here in just a moment. He's rolling forward with the rest of his team, telegraphing things. Only picks up points at Graviton, but it is going to maybe lead to a kill. It does! Nicholas comes in from the back at the last moment. Big bang combo underway. And Renegades now down to their last few defenders. It'd be huge if they could bring this back, but pretty unlikely after suffering that degree of damage.
Absolutely. They had to convert that just based on how well they were playing in that. And Bishu, a newer player under a pressure moment. The Graviton actually ended up getting 2. Sometimes people are a little slow to warp into the Graviton. It is slow acting. It is gravity after all, but they will get that point. Now looking for a little bit more. Juvenile looking for a giant Earthshatter, though. There it is.
Or is it?
Yeah,
it was
sorry.
Earthshatter that was looking really good, but he just ults some stone instead. Those roads are in bad shape already, Hex. I don't think Juvenile is really helping matters. So those tax dollars have to come from somewhere. But Juvenile coming back in, no more Earthshatter, but still holding the front line. And while he's in the front, it's Mangachu coming from the back, takes down 2. And Renegades, very aggressive defense here paying off as compLexity going to be well acquainted with the spawn room. And I feel like this happens to compLexity a lot here, Hex.
Teams feel that they can push compLexity and keep them in spawn. They've yet to prove that they're very good at breaking out of it. They lose players trying to come out of it, and I guess it goes back to the old adage, do it until they prove they can deal with it.
I'm just saying, there's a large sample size going back months of teams finding complexity in bad situations in their spawn door. Now, they do back off. They don't commit to it like Hammers might have, but they keep good positioning here. And Mangachu gonna be coming over the top and looking for that barrage.
Well, if you don't know where Mangachu is, assume he is above you. That would be a good adage to follow. They are going to try to boost Nicholas, or actually Torque in through here with this 76, but Mangachu with the counterplay right on top of him with the barrage gets two. That's a fine barrage trade.
He breaks Torque's glasses there. He was mid-tactical visor, but even though Mangachu dies, he does enough to take him out immediately, and here comes Renegades again, getting awfully close to that complexity spawn door, pushing them back. And Hex, was only 2 minutes left, but they are pulling back Torque. Now on McCree. He is not endangered. He is here on King's Row, and he's a big reason as to why they're able to clean up the last few kills there, and suddenly, complexity getting this rolling.
It is one of the reasons you see people hold that far forward, though, because if you notice, Bishu had to use the Graviton to let them out of that door, but they do finally crack through the door, and they will be going into the next fight with a very small ultimate advantage for the moment anyway. I really want to see what Torque's going to do. I mentioned that we need to see Torque doing some good work on this McCree. He has the option to now. Jesus going to be trying to maybe get to the back line, actually going to stay with his team. The Earthshatter does come down.
Earthshatter comes down, knocks down at least one. Going to be saying Juvenile on a ride. He's getting poked down like crazy, but while they're focused on Juvenile, they're not looking at Mangachu and Saipe, who are engaging the fight off the opposite flank, but Torque comes out. The McCree play, taking down two immediately. And this McCree swap, even though he's died, might have done enough here at complexity. Fight still in progress. Saipe going on that long ride, but Decomp falls before he can smash Saipe against the wall. And this is going to be a hold here from Renegades.
Saipe did have the boost on him, I believe, as well. Probably would have lived through that, but so far, it's a decent showing from Torque's McCree there, as he was able to take down the Pharah at the very least with a nice flashbang. He's going to remain on our Cowboy here as they roll towards it. He does have Deadeye at the ready. Not the easiest part of the map to get a good Deadeye in on.
No, not on. Oh, there's a much better Earthshatter there from Juvenile. Gets players instead of Cobblestone that time. 4 people gonna fall. Mangachu right there with the follow-through. And things are going from bad to worse here for complexity. They only have 38 seconds left. The next fight needs to be flawless for them, although the fight is currently taking place in the spawn door.
Very difficult situation right now for complexity. Demoralizing, to say the least, as they are stuck back in spawn. And as you mentioned, it happens to complexity more often than other teams. They're going to have to use ultimates to break out of here, very likely. A pulse bomb comes in. Nice save, though, by Bishu, keeping his Reinhardt alive.
And look, Renegades are very confident, just take this right here, but oh, the Earth Shatter comes down from Decomp. One good shatter deserves another. 2 members of Renegades gonna fall immediately. And now they have to roll back very quickly to defend this. We'll see if they can make it in time.
Well, they do get to the cart with only 2 seconds left. They are up there. Mangachu trying to set up for a barrage, but I gotta say, at 57 health, that'd be a greedy barrage.
He's spending so much time here, Hex, that he might actually have shares in this brewery. He's just inspecting the machinery while waiting for the rest of his team to get up here. And oh no, he's gonna find Tracer.
Out.
Goodbye! The sneaker got out-sneaked as Nicholas, with that early pickoff. Complexity now, much better situation to move this forward here. They're gonna pick up 2 kills. They're gonna pick up the point. And now they have a chance to bring this into the end.
Torque remaining on that McCree, and as I mentioned on the last side of the map, very good at closing out the map. If he can get around this first bend, he's good at the second bend, because look where everyone's going to be spawning. McCree dominates when you have the space like this, so trying to get his shots in, not the perfect shots just far, but a Deadeye could change this game.
Deadeye could change this game. We haven't seen too many huge Deadeyes in recent memory, but they can be big, and here comes Mangachu. A little bit sneaky in through the hole, off the back line. Here comes a barrage, caught. 3 kills here from Mangachu, make it 4. They were not expecting what is one of the oldest Pharah flanks in the book. People were happy in Beta 1 when they found it, and yet still effective to this day.
Well, Saipe deserves a lot of credit for that one as well, and the communication coordination, rather, definitely there, as the Graviton had come up right before that barrage in, and then towards the end, a bubble onto Pharah to keep Mangachu alive. Beautiful combination working there on the defense. Really hard to stop when that happens to you.
And now for complexity, this is do or die. 25 seconds left, a must-win fight. They can hope with the Sound Barrier and Pulse Bomb. They do, at least for the Pulse Bomb. Juvenile down already. This is gonna let them save that Sound Barrier for a little bit longer. Nicholas looking for an extra pickup here. They break it down. They smell blood in the water. And Renegades suddenly starting to fall here in the back line. They throw bodies onto the cart for no effect. And that was perhaps a bit foolish, Hex, as now complexity in overtime very well could bring this to the end.
They've got closeout ultimates as well. Earthshatter is up. They will have a boost, and we know how good McCree can be here. Torque's still on that hero as well. Juvenile is going to come in, gets boosted, tries to get an ult out, does not, gets charged instead.
That shield feeling the impact of the Earthshatter, if nothing else there, Hex, but the rest of Renegades getting more done. They roll in 2 kills. compLexity not cleanly finishing this, and Saipe being a force to be reckoned with here on the payload. Good health, good charge, stopping this Lucio from pushing it in. He's just trying to boop him back, and oh no, he got killed. Joe Meister pushing it in and connects. There was still so many on the defense alive. Joe Meister not giving up there towards the end as Saipe getting bursted down. Now, that's the good news for compLexity. The bad news is, because they had 0 time remaining on the clock for their attack, they don't even get a crack at this. They're simply playing for the draw. Renegades gets to go on the attack again to see if they can finish this out.
You couldn't let us bask in it for a second. Got to bring the bad news right away.
I have to keep it real. I'm sorry.
What a god, Joe Meister bringing it in for his team. But as EP said, there is bad news about, as Renegades will get a crack at first. Minute 27 on the clock for them to win Kings Row. I see you, Joe, though. What a Lucio play.
Joe has to feel happy about that. That's the one thing you put in your highlight reel, even if they end up losing this game. But that's the problem for compLexity here, is that they can only walk away at the draw. They came out with 0 seconds. They don't get that extra attack. They just have to withstand the Renegades here for a minute 30. And the 27 seconds actually a very big deal on Kings Row. That amounts to an extra attack in full. Doesn't do that on every map, but certainly does it here. So compLexity is going to have to be perfect for about 3 pushes in a row.
Well, thus far, compLexity, Kings Row has been a map of moral victories for them. Tanks are playing pretty well. Torque had an okay McCree game. Joe Meister has one of the best Lucio and funniest plays I've ever seen. So a draw, still a moral victory at this point. We'll see how it goes. First push coming out for Renegades.
Renegades coming in, looking for an early attack here. Torque right now, safe in the window. He's going to be playing this a little bit more conservatively. If he gets picked, that might be it. And trying to take down Mangachu early on. Mangachu, though, gets healed up immediately by his Ana play, and Torque gets pulled right down. Luckily for him, Mangachu falls in the process, so he's still alive. Saipe right on him, and he's able to get away. Very good evasiveness here from compLexity, and that's going to allow them to hold off this first push.
I want to know what kind of shoes Soldier 76 wears, as he has been running away from people all week in this tournament. Guessing new eras? Not sure. Anyway, they are set up. That is a very good first hold, probably down to the last push, and they're going to be pushing into ultimates because that's how poorly that first fight went for Renegades.
Well, Renegades here, they're going to have to do this without the aid of ultimates. Decop alone could deliver the dagger to the heart of Renegades. See the plus bomb going in over the top. Jesus, barely alive. No, does fall to Bishu in the very end. So they're already down Winston. Torque with a bit of cleanup here. This is a 4v6. Only 14 seconds remain here for Renegades. They have to find a way of turning around and hang on. Sherlocki on the Bishu early on. This is still winnable, although they are still down players. The ultimates have been used. No, goodbye, Mangachu. Sleep Dart in the fall through. Nicholas in the back line. And we should be heading to a tiebreaker here, Hex, because Renegades getting thrown off this point. They do have respawns coming in. Earthshatter, pretty late to fight, but Torque, 200 HP, not hit by it. Able to clutch things out here at the very end. And that's going to be it. Both teams drawing out here in Kings Row, 3-3.
Extremely consistent damage really nullified a lot of the plays that Renegades had been making. I think back about that hook that grabbed him out of the skybox, but killing Roadhog before that hook had finished and connected. The Earthshatter very late, killing the Reinhardt before an Earthshatter can be followed through. So the consistent amount of damage compLexity put on allows them to draw on this map, and I'll say it, moral victory, for sure, moral victory.
So Mangachu picking up play of the game, no surprise there. This is, again, the oldest trick in the book, but still pretty effective. Catches them completely off guard. Gotta expect the ferret coming in from the hole.
It's hard. It's hard to expect where Mangachu's going to be. As I say, if you don't know where he is, he's probably above you, is how I'd play against Mangachu.
Except in that time, he is below you.
Until he was above you. Splitting hairs.
Yeah, he had the old reach around there play, as I call it there. No, but I want to talk about Kings Row a little bit. Selected by compLexity, and as you said, a lot of moral victories coming out with a draw here, especially with how a few of these fights kind of broke down. And Decop really showing up on Reinhardt. Bishu had some great plays, especially on Zarya. Definitely his strong suit. But I want to real quick bring it over to the the triple threat conversation, because it was pretty textbook coming out here from their opponents in Jesus, Mangachu, and Saipe. Tracer, Pharah, and Genji at the beginning of that. And it looked, like I said, textbook, I think is the way I want to put it.
It was very good, although I actually liked it more when they were running the Ana over the Mercy. It's true that the Mercy lets Mangachu be even more aggressive and feel more invincible, but when you have the Ana in play over the Mercy, it gives the Ana a lot more options for you on support. In fact, it was when they were in the Ana that we saw the Saipe having much better plays on his Genjis, so I think Pharah Mercy still has its role, but I think for what they're doing there, I would actually like to see them get away from the Mercy more and just run more Ana, just because it creates more options for who you're healing on that triple threat offense.
I tend to agree, but I like Mercy onto Pharah for a lot of reasons. If you can get those very early damage rockets in, the fight's essentially over, and then you're able to push so much further forward as a combination. You can gain so much ground. On Kings, and Dorado also comes to mind as maps that can be won solely by a combination in the air.
And I'll tell you, I definitely have more topics, I guess, that I want to bring up. Especially, I want to address this peanut butter tea pairing that we talked about earlier. But for now, we're going to go over to Ilios. So let's pick this conversation up after the tiebreaker. For those of you who don't know how the tiebreakers work here at the OCS, the way they work is we play a single point on Ilios, and this is going to decide who gets credit for map number 1. Take it away coming into this first point.
Well, this is Ilios. It is bright and sunny, and it is a best of 1 here. Everything on the table for each of these teams to claim victory in the very first map of Kings Row. So, Hex, as we move in, does anything surprise you about the lineups we are seeing here from both teams? It looks like we might have that Pharah v. Pharah matchup.
Well, we were expecting Pharah from Renegades, definitely, because Mangachu is on that roster, so you can always expect Pharah from him. But this is how they answered Renegades when they took the set from them yesterday. They ran their own Pharah, supplemented it with a Soldier 76. They're also going to have a small advantage if they roll out with this, because that Pharah is going to have a Mercy instead. That's a battle that Nicholas should win.
Well, this goes back to sort of the talk we had a little bit earlier, although they're not really running a multi-threat offense here. It's more standard tank play with a Pharah in the mix rather than what we're seeing from compLexity, where they are running a Pharah Mercy and a 76. So for Mangachu, he's not going to be getting quite the level of support he would be if he had a Mercy, but he's going to be able to have Jesus on Roadhog being able to control the ground a little bit better.
Well, early on, as the Pharah battle commences, Nicholas does eat some damage, but gets out. That's the power of having it. But Mangachu does draw first blood onto Bishu, unafraid of this Pharah v. Pharah fight, and it's another quick kill as Torque goes down.
Torque is down early in Renegades, making this very quick indeed. Now Mangachu's diving in because why not? He has all the support in the world, and everyone from compLexity just about dead. Getting those long-range rockets, and now it's Renegades taking first control at this point.
Torque switches off of the 76. He's going to be on to a Roadhog instead. I think they're just waiting for Nicholas to switch. He might stay on it. Shake has also changed.
There's no more Mercy in this fight. Now both teams realizing that they need the higher throughput of Ana, specifically to keep your Roadhogs alive in this sort of situation. Bishu gets on the Juvenile early on here, and now this will create an opportunity for Nicholas to go in, and oh, Justice reigns from above, but there's a Pharah right above in Nicholas, stopping that in its tracks. Still very back and forth here. This might let Renegades stall out even if they end up on the losing end.
Well, they are doing a lot of damage. The boop onto Hog keeps him in position to hit a hook. Actually, as Saipe is going to come in. Nicholas trying to do his best, but it seems like he's a little separated from his team all alone. Able to take down Sherlocky, which is nice going into the next fight, but already 42% on the scoreboard for Renegades.
And this is the problem here for compLexity. Even though they've been fighting this relatively evenly up until Jesus going off a moment ago, it's not enough if you can't get control of the point. Renegades will take this fight all day long because in about another minute or so, they're going to have full control of this point and win the round. So compLexity has to find a way of breaking through here. They do have a window at the ultimates they have up. We'll see what they do with that window here in just a moment.
They got to be careful as Saipe is looking for a sneaky grab. They're going to bait them in by Juvenile backing up, but luckily for compLexity, they look like they want to rotate to the right side instead. So Saipe is just going to press the issue. They've been fighting on their side of the map the entire game.
Saipe only going to get the Reinhardt in there initially, but a few more get sucked in. Mangachu there at the follow through, 3-1 in favor of Renegades, and that's unfortunate to be a boosted Reinhardt with no friends there left. Decomp even finds Saipe there, but that's not going to be enough to retake this point. 15% left. Do or die now for compLexity.
Well, Decop is going to put himself off the edge so that he can reset with his team. He was out all alone, did not want to get staggered, so they are going to bring it back. They're not going to be full force right now, but Soundbarrier to initiate. Barrage should be incoming. Sherlocky's going to go down to it.
Well, the Barrage comes in, gets Sherlocky, but is immediately hauled to the ground by Jesus. Torque throws another Pharah to the ground. The Roadhogs being the anti-air spot, and no, goodbye Torque. Into the well you go. This is Overwatch. And now take a look at the way this fight is breaking down. Renegades very close to finishing it out. Jesus able to use the whole hog to clear out space on the point. We're in overtime. compLexity must stand the point at all costs. And oh no, Jesus having a ball of a time, throwing another into the pit, using the terrain to maximum advantage. And now Renegade just a little bit away from clearing out Ilios. They do just that, and that means they have the victory for Kings Row.
A completely one-sided affair, and we will very likely be going into a control map. And you'd have to think that compLexity does not want to see Ilios. Ilios always been very favorable at Pharahs.
No doubt about it. And there you go, Roadhog into the pit. One of the most effective moves you can do with Roadhog on this map, but that was pivotal. If that hook had gone the other way, maybe that's a case where we see compLexity actually pull that back to some extent. It would have been an uphill battle, but it would have kept them alive. Instead, it's Jesus landing that hook, it's Torque taking the tumble, and it's Renegades taking the map.
Yeah, and we'll talk about Ilios just a little bit because we only saw that one point. I think it's an interesting point to bring up. Well, we will be seeing another control point map. Who chooses it is going to rely on the next map, which is an assault map. So this is definitely going to be very important because with that performance going into the third map, I mean, if you have an option to pick Nepal, maybe. I feel like that might be a little bit better as far as the Pharah matchup goes. But let's talk about this game. The triple threat versus the Pharah Mercy. Take it away, ZP. What do you think about that?
Triple threat. I mean, they weren't really running a normal triple threat versus
Not
that.
a normal triple
they
threat.
They were
yeah.
running more standard to begin with. Neither team was going triple DPS into that to begin with, so I don't think you can really call it a triple threat. I do think what's interesting, though, is that you were running Pharah Mercy versus Pharah Ana, and I think if you, as the Pharah Mercy combo, don't immediately hit pay dirt with the damage-boosted rockets and the deep Pharah dive, I think that's going to catch up to you because Ana is much more able to deal with poke across the entire team spectrum than a Mercy who's really locked into making her Pharah work.
They needed to deep dive that for sure, and I think Renegades saw that they were running the combination and were sitting very far back. They didn't even engage until Mangachu started hitting rockets over the top, but they had the Reinhardt shield on their own side of the map. Once they won as well, they were extremely aggressive. Most of that fighting took place on compLexity's side of the map, and you can do that also because Pharah's always over the top, getting all of that damage, all that free damage over the top as they're coming out of spawn. You have to leave your spawn behind a Reinhardt shield on Ilios when that situation happens to you. Not a good feeling.
Well, and the only reason I would call it a triple DPS is, well, Jesus on the Roadhog. It definitely more standard if you're considering it that. But one thing that really played into their favor is if you're playing on compLexity's side of the map, you've got whole hog. There's a nice little corridor people are funneling through there, and they utilized it there right in the middle. And after that, it just seemed like compLexity didn't have much. But let's go back real quick because this was technically a Kings Row play. And first of all, I'd like to say the peanut butter tea pairing, maybe a chai black tea or a rooibos tea, I think would be best. But more importantly, let's talk about Saipe flanking dive defensive Winston. We saw it in the first game actually out of Renegades. How did that work? And was he able to get on shake? Did that shake up this compLexity offense?
I think anytime you're going to run an offensive Pharah on Kings Row, Saipe is going to be pretty happy about it because that's one less person that's going to be behind in the back line, so that's going to be able to protect the supports. And he's been doing it the entire time. It goes into Hammers being a very aggressive team. And if you think about it, maybe this is a stretch, and you can correct me, but the roles of a Genji and a Winston when a fight breaks down like that can be similar of go finish the kills. Go finally get that last bit of damage. You've got the mobility similarities as you're able to dash and get on that backline and finish it up, and that's why Saipe has been cleaning up on Kings Row.
You also have similarities, too, in that there's plenty of times where Genji is in the back saying, hey, look at me, as he comes out with the reflect. Even though you're not going to kill him in that case, there's plenty of times where you have three people looking at the Genji. You can't really ignore him because he was capable of, and then the Genji just exits stage left and gets out of the fight. Well, Winston does a little bit of the same from time to time where the Winston will leap in, drop his shield, be in there, and then cause people to look at him, and then he just backs out. And we saw Saipe not only having good engages, but good disengages as well, what being played on that defense.
Which is, we talked about how the importance of mobility, and we definitely seeing it there. We did see the final point before we go into Hanamura is Torque was on McCree. How did that pan out coming into this this last map?
Torque on McCree, that's a case where you look at it, it had its moments, but it also wasn't the level of dominance you want from a McCree. Now, that's not necessarily his fault. It's a team game and all the rest, but you think to when we've seen Grim Reality take over a game, or you look at Apex, you see players like Taimu take over a game. Torque was getting contribution. He wasn't giving dominance.
it was a nice start for Torque on McCree, I will say. At least he did enough to make them think twice.
Yes.
Well, here we are on Hanamura. The series is 1-0 to Renegades as compLexity selected Hanamura for their map. Let's see what they can bring to the table as they will be on defense first.
So we are here on Hanamura. That was a Murloc. Your eyes don't deceive you. You can shoot it, and it'll make Murloc sounds. It's really just makes me cower in fear. I was in Westfall back in the day. I know how they can swarm in on you. But take a look here at the compLexity defense as they set up. It is looking like, sorry, the Renegades defense as they set up. It's looking like they should be coming in here with the Torbjorn. So they're going with more of a builder-style defense. No Symmetra in sight, though, however, Hex.
Mangachu has the funniest hero pool of anyone in Overwatch right now. He plays all sorts of different stuff, all sorts of things that are not traditionally played necessarily, but Mangachu's Torb has been wonderful. Or no, yeah, okay, sorry. Mangachu's Torb has been wonderful. They've been running it on this defense a great deal. Very interesting enough, a defensive Widow here for Jesus here. He's been running offensively on Widow, but it may be one of the first times we've seen him defensively on the Widow.
We have seen him on defensive Widow before to varying degrees of success. I think it's not bad, although it's also very high risk if you run to an offensive Widow, because then if you just lose that Widow fight once, you're in rough shape for actually holding the point. But for now, he's just going to use terrain to his advantage, get to the opposite end of which compLexity wants to go in on, and then look to see if he can pick off someone like a Nicholas early on.
It's very difficult for me to see someone posted up there and not just imagine a rocket taking them out after last week. However, he's got a really nice angle. It is going to be compLexity moving in up top with the Reinhardt shield in front of him, negating a lot of what that Widow can do, and that's a nice kill from Nicholas to take down Jesus, not having to worry about the Widow now.
Well, Nicholas is pretty good at killing people on that point, regardless of what hero he's on, but it was with a Helix rocket, so Nicholas got the rocket there anyways, Hex. Fight now underway, and Torque getting in deep, winning the Hog v Hog battle, and with all these mirrors being won here by compLexity, they should be able to take this pretty readily. Jesus is going down there, definitely a key point of contention, and again, rockets from Nicholas onto that point, pretty deadly.
Well, in very recent history, as recent as yesterday, Renegades lost to compLexity on this map, so compLexity definitely has this map figured out. First point at the very least. We'll see what it ends up being if they have to play on defense, but so far, about to roll in here, but they won that so quickly, they're not going to have ults rolling in here. You still try anyway.
You definitely still try. Well, they are moving in, trying to get them on him, but Saipe, he built up the Dragon Blade in that early melee there for the side Renegades, so they're going to deal with this compLexity offense rather easily. Very difficult to deal with that when you don't have ultimates of your own, and a bit of revenge coming in here from the Renegades. compLexity, they're going to take point B. It's definitely going to take longer than under 2 minutes.
As one-sided as that first fight was just about as one-sided on the other side of the fights, as now we get into the long haul of trying to take Hanamura. Last Saipe's got to be very careful, gets down to 20, gets healed up though. Nothing all that out of the ordinary on this defense. Mangachu is off of the Torb just based on the minimal success he had. No Widowmaker on this defense either, so a pretty standard defensive composition. Now all the ults in favor of compLexity.
And the thing you have to look out for here for your compLexity is Mangachu with tac visors around the side. That's always something that can kill fights early on. But we do have the engage coming in for compLexity. Soundbearer up and on the way. They used it to find the kill in the Saipe early on. Saipe dove in, met Soundbearer, didn't work out. There's the Graviton Surge coming in. Torque gonna break the shield and potentially pick up 2 kills. Nicholas on the fall through. This has been perfect for compLexity here so far. But as I say, that Joe Meister falls, still not the worst. Mangachu with the counter attack visor picks down 2, and it's not enough. He can't get onto the point, and compLexity in a quick strike gets point B. This is awful for Renegades.
I think it's a combination of compLexity being very good at those set plays, at those point takes. As we mentioned in the past, they're very good at hybrid maps on taking first points. And what is Assaults if not 2-point take maps?
No doubt about it. But the thing I really want to highlight there is that was an excellent Soundbearer by Joe Meister.
Yep.
Saipe saw an opportunity to go in, get a kill. Soundbearer comes up. He can't do anything. He dies early on, and that gives compLexity the 6v5 opportunity to really take that fight into their own hands. And then to follow it through, they're clumped up a little bit on the side of Renegades. They get caught by the Graviton, cleaved through by the whole hog, and even though Mangachu's not part of it, it's just not enough for him to try and kill all 6 people, and the point gets capped very quickly.
I do not believe Renegades likes this map. Again, this was off stream yesterday in the Overwatch monthly melee, but they ran 4 DPS and were unable to take first point. It looks like Renegades wants to take 4 DPS, hoping for different results.
The thing about 4 DPS setups is that they are a little bit more variable. Anytime you have anything that relies on dive, you have cases where you either win big or you lose big. And 4 DPS, there's no bigger composition where that happens. Sometimes you can catch people in a case where it devolves into a bit of a brawl with both teams trading out, but sometimes you just get stuffed in the very beginning. So we'll see how this works out here. Certainly if Renegades had trouble yesterday, even though it wasn't on stream, I would expect that they might have made some adjustments in the interim.
Well, compositionally, they have not made any adjustments, as you do see 4 DPS on the offense, at least queued up. They're going to be rolling into Joe Meister now on the Torb. Nicholas will be playing the 76 up top with the help of Bishu, a similar setup to what we've been seeing for some teams, kind of just separating it, running a little bit of a crossfire defense.
Crossfire defense not bad, and Nicholas, I feel like he feels pretty good about being up here since he knows that there's not Nicholas on the other team to send some form of a rocket his way. Feels good to be the king.
He has hit several rockets at that perch right now. Jesus looking for something early as he's now on the offensive Widowmaker. Not going to find a lot of targets at dead center anyway. Joe Meister takes down Juvenile early as he tried to get in, but the turret, with its very reliable aim, takes down Juvenile early. But Jesus in a good perch. Can he find Paydirt?
Well, he's looking for the Roadhog there. Actually could have had the pick off if he had a headshot, but he gets pushed right off by the Steven play coming in from Bishu, and I wonder if they just realized that they'd be seeing the Widow here. Wanted Diva to apply a little bit of extra pressure, and Juvenile's already died twice. He's getting very little done this Tracer here thus far.
Well, there are some Reinhardt mains who can play Tracer. There are some who still struggle with Tracer. Look at that long-range pick. Nice shot from Joe Meister.
And Mangachu just sat there for a moment, tried to get his breath, and got a rivet to the brain for it. So Joe Meister throwing in a little bit of extra contribution from Tor. But now take a look at Renegades as they come in. Bishu was a bit far out, ends up getting taken down. 6v5 opportunity as they move in. We have the recon sight up from Jesus, so they know exactly where it is. And Nicholas gets picked. Nicholas is gone. He's no longer a part of this fight. Jesus even gets the Ana on top of it. 2 very important picks, and Renegades now with the recipe they need to get onto this point and very likely take it, as Sherlock, he ends up with 3 cleanup kills. Zen and Widow, the unlikely pairing that breaks open this point A defense.
Well, you saw Bishu flying away there, probably in shame, because him going down early opened it up for Jesus to do whatever he wanted. Bishu was counted on to be the counter to this Widow, and once he went down, we saw Jesus absolutely wreck right there. They have some ultimates to work with. First push, oftentimes the best one. A pulse bomb sticks, but Juvenile goes down. A rough game on Tracer thus far.
Juvenile's been having some troubles. Let's just leave it at that. The rest of Renegades trying to make the most of this opportunity, but they've lost Lucio. They've lost all their support now. They're gonna have to back out. You cannot take this point being down that many people, and I gotta say, Juvenile and Tracer has not been great, and finally he is getting off the Tracer onto Reinhardt. I think the pulse bombing yourself in the middle of a fight, a microcosm of his entire Hanamura here thus far.
Fair enough, fair enough. Jesus is going to stay on that Widow. He's going to have infrared sight up momentarily. They do change over. Mangachu will be on a Roadhog. Juvenile onto a Reinhardt, which I think is smart anyway. It looks very difficult for this to happen with 4 DPS. A big pick.
Torbjorn falling from that early pick off. Saipe diving in, sensing the opportunity, Dragon Blade up, gets 2 before falling himself. The turret actually is what kills him, the post-mortem turret from Joe Meister. And while it's a good opening here from Renegades, they just lead too many players early on. Very unlikely they're going to be able to bring this back, especially against a Mei that's here and delaying. Juvenile going to spend some time as an ice cube before getting smashed and shattered against the wall. compLexity holding strong.
Joe Meister did switch onto Lucio, though, I think in an attempt of maybe wanting to solo out. Yeah, there it is. There's a switch back. That Torb has been extremely effective against this team. It has hurt a lot of the flankers coming in. It was effective on first point and second, so no surprise to see him going back to that. Nicholas will stay on this Mei, though. I think that's the right call.
The Mei is just so hard to deal with on Hanamura. Assault maps in general benefit from good Mei. It's interesting that we've seen her going away, but Saipe prioritizes the turret here, takes it out early on. He is able to get a good HP, so that's a turret kill for free. Sound Barrier coming in from Renegades as they commit to this fight a little bit harder. Saipe doing work in the back, still pressuring Joe Meister, not letting him get the turret up, does get the kill in the end. The kill feed all in blue here as Renegades comes in from multiple angles. Juvenile gets hooked in. Oh my goodness, goodbye Roadhog. He is rolling in all ways, but the good ones as Renegades now firm dominant presence on this point, and now we'll see if compLexity can delay, but it's super unlikely. 2 ticks, 3 ticks, and we are done. Renegades comes out with a pretty good time here. Not as fast as compLexity, but you can work with this time.
You're right, not as fast, but finishing Hanamura with 4 minutes left. comparatively, against a lot of other results we've seen, a very good time. Only took them 3 pushes towards the end to get in there. And Saipe went off towards the end. He was so close to dying. He got whole hogged and was able to get up to the top and then killed Joe Meister once he got up there. He had himself a good last push.
Well, most of it was done outside of the camera there. It was in the hallway where he was just pressuring Joe Meister the entire time. He didn't know if Joe Meister had a molten core or something up there. He got the turret down immediately. Joe Meister tried to escape, get another turret up. That turret dies as well, and Saipe finally finishes the kill. And while that's going on, the rest of Renegades, they use the sound barrier opening to get onto the point and turn that more in their favor.
You have to be persistent when pressuring a Torbjorn. Those turrets build quickly, but they don't build at full health at the very least. So when they're just baby turrets, you're able to get them down very easily. The persistence paid off for Saipe's Genji there. Joe Meister not deterred, though. He's going to run the Torb again, and why not? It did have pretty good success early on, especially when they were running 4 DPS.
The Torbjorn was a good pick overall. I mean, even though he got killed by Saipe towards the end, he even drew Saipe's attention for a very long period of time, and it could have gone the other way. So I'm fine with them sticking on the Torb, but Renegades coming in on their offense once more. They have less time in their time bank. That's why they're attacking twice in a row. And we'll see how this goes again, where Jesus will be looking for those early pickoffs on the Widowmaker.
Well, Bishu is on the Winston and said perhaps he's more comfortable on that hero, but regardless, he's still going to be on Widow Patrol, and if he goes down early, going to be difficult. Takes down Saipe early, too, so now doing double duty, having to deal with Widow and Saipe, works out to start this match.
And the interesting thing here is that even though they can't take the point down, people, they can still look for picks, and they get just that. Nicholas taking one to the head. Jesus moving in. And now, this is more complicated for the defense. It's going to be a while till reinforcements come in, and the offense can come in, not with 6 because Jared just died, but still 5. So I'd expect them to keep up the pressure. And oh no, the charge coming in on the Saipe once more. Saipe having a much rougher game here, but Jesus found Torque as a pickoff. This means that he has full control of the sight lines here, and he's really been a thorn in complexity's side.
Able to get Torque. Mangachu, though, took a lot of damage from the Ana. You thought for the moment if Torque down, Mangachu was going to go in, but Ana doing a great job at deterring him. Joe Meister gets another turret kill onto Mangachu, perhaps underestimating that turret range.
Reinhardt applying a little bit of fire to Jesus' life there, at least making him move. And look at Torb here, not close to a molten core, but still pretty well protected behind Decop. Renegade's going to have to make a more decisive move soon here. 2.5 minutes left remaining. They are on the point, and this is actually going to force Joe Meister out of his comfort zone. He almost has molten core, but he has to help the rest of his team, and this isn't really where a Torb wants to be, but Battle Torb is in action.
Well, the unseen contribution that Joe has made is that everyone was armored up in that fight, so able to stay alive much longer than they could have. Nicholas takes down Sherlocky. Jur also down, all the healing down for this push for Renegades. Push very likely over.
The push is over. They only leave with 1 tick to their name, and the thing that's a little bit complicated for them here is that if they don't get in soon, Joe Meister is going to be back with his molten core as he is spamming that to his team. We'll see how it works out.
Really doubling down on dealing with Jesus, knowing that if they can simply negate the Widow, they'll be fine. Torque has moved over to the Diva instead. Armor still up on everyone as that's Joe Meister's unseen contribution again. Whoa, another turret kill.
Saipe really having issues with that turret early on, already putting Renegades in a 5v6 situation. Molten Core up and ready here for complexity, and with the turret taking down Lucio, Renegades has to back out. 1:45 left, and this is actually getting rather grim for them right now, Hex.
Looking pretty rough for them right now. Not necessarily because of anything in particular, but that Jesus is gone. Well, he gets 1 kill, but he's been pressured so hard. They're going to come in now and try to take this fight to him. Should be holding on to Molten Core. Only Mangachu left. He will fall to a well-placed Fire Strike.
Can you just note that that was a boosted Torbjorn with no Molten Core? He just ran in there with the Rivet Gun, and hey, it worked out. Why not? Maybe it wasn't intentional. I think he was right by Decop, but sometimes you gotta boost your Torbjorn.
He's got 275 armor, and he's got a gun that's very similar to Reaper's if you right-click. I'm for it. Totally for it.
All right, Renegades now down to their final minute, getting a whole lot of trouble actually going in. The multi-core is going to be used, but Shake falls immediately. Saipe finally finding way through, makes it a triple kill, and turret or no turret, Saipe getting over the hump here, doing terrible damage to the Complexity backline. Complexity might have to give up this point yet.
I think we found how to make people better Genji, ZP. We simply have to question their Genji ability early on in the evening. It's Saipe and Ube now proving us wrong constantly. Nice boost in. Jesus going to be on the cleanup. Pivotable, I think is a word. Anyway, I'm struggling. In that last moment was Mangachu taking down the Molten Cord turret so that Saipe was able to come back in.
Well, pivotal moment or no.
Yeah, there you go.
We see Saipe coming back in here. They have the sound barrier, so there's an option here for Renegades. They only have 47 seconds. They got 30 seconds from capturing the first point, so they only get one attempt here to get 4 points total. Nicholas drops the pulse bomb, does not connect. Sound barrier in. Renegades must get a kill or two in this to really make this work. The pulse bomb on the Torque connects. Now we have an option, but no, the pulse bomb on the Jesus. Explosives taking them both down. Mangachu in over the top, but just too many people have died here from Renegades. Saipe gonna try to pull this on his own back here. Dropping the Dragon Blade, only getting one. And though there's still members of Renegades here, compLexity respawning in force here onto the point, starting to bully Renegades away. 12 seconds remaining.
Still a couple of kills. They have no choice but to try to stay in here and get it done. Saipe is at full health, but that is a boosted Diva hunting people down. Mangachu down. Jesus still in there, as is Saipe, but a lot of targets for them to choose from. Does not look great.
It doesn't look great. We still see Renegades fighting back here, but this is never a high percent situation. I'm holding out hope that we see the miracle play, but Jesus still up and around, gonna fall to Bishu. Just Winston zoning people off the point because you can exploit the fact that it's overtime. They have to go on the point, which makes Winston even more effective for just clearing people out in those situations. So that is where the offensive Renegades will be stalled out. They end up with 3 points total. The odds that we go to a draw here, much higher now, Hex.
Medium to high. Let me just practice. Pivotal. That's where I was going. I don't know why I added an able in there. Regardless, that's what I was thinking. A draw could be on the table for us here as last points, notoriously difficult to take. We'll see how it goes. 5 minutes. I think they got it in under 5 minutes, the second point, all the way through towards the end.
They did.
So
if
yeah.
they can do their first attack again, they will win the map. That's easier said than done. Even when we've seen teams have one good attack to start things out, you still have the other team in Renegades going to have the ability to make a few adjustments. And even then, it's a variability of getting through on last. You're not always guaranteed to get it. Obviously, compLexity does have a chance to go for the win here. It's very unlikely that they would fail to get first in 5 minutes and 20 seconds, so their worst case scenario, most likely a draw. So they have that they're working with. Although, based on how the tiebreaker went last time on Ilios, I don't think they really want to go down that road again. There is some degree of pressure on them to fish it out just because of that, I would suppose.
Well, one of the few teams that has run double builder in recent memory is this Renegades team. They're going to bust it out knowing that holding on first for a long time will be very good. Jur is set up on the Symmetra. Mangachu will reprise his role onto the Torb, and they're putting 3 tanks in there as well. A very, very hold-looking composition.
It's a very beefy defense,
Yep.
if nothing else. You have buildings, you have beef on the ground in regards to 3 tanks, and we'll see what compLexity does to do with it. What you can be assured of is that it's going to be hard to get an early pickoff here because it is a lot of survivability, but once the tide of battle goes the way of compLexity, they should be able to keep it going in their favor.
Getting some nice orbs.
And Jesus goes down early on. He's a little bit too far out. That's pretty big here because he's the most of the burst power for this Renegades defense.
Very nice orbs coming through, though, means that Jur is so close to getting a teleporter back up. He does get his ultimate. Will he be able to drop it? Meanwhile, Mangachu goes down and his turret.
This is bad for Renegades. They are almost certainly going to be thrown off the point at this point. They've lost too many people, and oh no. And that is just the exclamation point on top. Saipe goes down. Now, that said, Jared gets teleported back up, so there is a chance that they bring it back, but there's still going to be people staggering back in onto the point. It's a nice teleport to get up that quickly. compLexity, though, still with a lot of presence on the point, although Nicholas bringing it back just when you think Renegades might be fully staying up. We'll see. They have actually cleared things out.
They've completely cleared it out, and he's going to raid all of those eliminations and give everyone armor. Mangachu's almost got Molten Core back up. He's just got to get his sentry up. It might actually be up over top. They've exhausted the teleporter for sure, but that teleporter was point saving.
The teleporter was big. It was a case where normally compLexity should be able to take that even with the teleporter, but they found a way through despite the sudden power of Nicholas. So very close fight. Goes the way of complexity in the end, and they get an extra chance at life here. 3 minutes left, though, for them to hold on first if they want the outright win.
Mangachu's been very good about rotating his turret. We've seen that on previous maps as well. That turret is going to be up top. They're going to prioritize taking that down, knowing that Molten Core is very likely to be up. Molten Core popped.
Molten Core has popped, and for now, complexity giving it some breathing room. They do lose Bishu early on here, though. And complexity, they seize a moment with the tac visor. I don't know if it's going to be enough. They're already down 2. Mangachu has done some serious damage to this backline, and Renegades, they're going to hold on here.
They use Sound Barrier there as well, so a draw would only occur if this first point is taken, and not enough for Renegades as they want to completely take the map with a first point stronghold here. They use a lot of ults. They're off of the Symmetra, Jura's back onto the Lucio instead, but they do have tank ults for these incoming pushes, but 2 minutes and 50 seconds left.
2 minutes and 50 seconds is an eternity for Hanamura first. That's a very long time for complexity to work with here. Of course, they could still be held. Let's not discount that possibility. But there's a lot of options for them as they come in. The thing I don't like, though, is the fact that they're taking so long to even attempt this fight. This isn't what they need to be doing with the amount of time they have. Either way, the first fight is underway here. Jesus popping the whole hog, going to be keeping them back, and complexity still not able to get through.
Torque takes down Juvenile there. A Graviton comes in very late as Saipe operates from within it, but that is a couple nice kills. Again, no teleporter up as they've switched off of that hero, so these trades going to work out pretty well. Have to prioritize that turret in the backline. It does go down from Nicholas eventually. Bishu very charged up. The Molten Core popped without the turret necessarily. He's going to get it up, though.
They drop the Sound Barrier as well. 4 people going to be hit by that, and 4 people still alive with the Molten Core. That's enough to throw complexity back here in theory. Complexity, though, they do get down the turrets. There's moving in, but as they move in, it's Saipe coming out the flank, finds Bishu early on, makes it a double kill, and complexity, this is actually very scary now, Hex. They started with 5.5 minutes, now they're down to 1.5 minutes, in large part because of that great teleporter play by Jer.
We call Torbjorn a builder sometimes, but I think we have to call him a DPS who just happens to have turrets on occasion. He has been going after people and getting a lot of kills, a lot of damage done, and then again, just throwing armor out everywhere. He does snowball as a hero.
Complexity now backs against the wall, moving in, a little over a minute left. They use the nano boost and get nothing. Now they get knocked to the ground by that Earth Shatter. At least 2 people knocked. The fall through not immediately there early on. Torque gonna win the trade with Jesus, though, as we see complexity taking a final shot here at point A. And with the Sound Barrier engaged, that might be it. Nicholas finding Pay Dirt in the back. No teleporter to save Renegades this time. But here's the thing, is that complexity doesn't exactly have a whole lot of time to work with now to take last. They should have had many minutes. Now they only have a minute.
A minute and a Graviton will be the story of this last as they try to push in. Bishu, somewhat new to this team, gonna get the grab in from distance, only grabs the Rhine.
Well, it only grabs the Rhine, but Juvenile immediately getting taken out as a result. But Saipe flanking Tactical Visor, coming in, drops down off the high ground, picks up 2, and complexity will be getting thrown off this point. Too many people have fallen down. Saipe striking Pager.
One more push for complexity, otherwise we will draw on Hanamura. Bishu will switch off onto the Diva instead, looking to get a little more sustainability after he used that Zarya alt decop, still staying on the Reinhardt. Only ultimate available for them will be Torque. Nicholas maybe getting it too, but Saipe in a really cool position for Soldier, going to be hard to deal with.
Saipe here in the back, something that complexity is going to have to look at. Able to get himself over the here, which is actually very hard to get in on without movement abilities. So he's going to be a pain here over to the right. Renegades content with holding up here in the top, and Molten Core going to be a threat here. So Juvenile dies early on again. 65 out of 2 for complexity, but they do have to worry about the Molten Core, and Mangachu pops early, doesn't want to waste any time. 10 seconds left. This is where complexity must get on the point. Nicholas finds Saipe early on. They need to commit now, though.
Molten Core is out, but that's probably why they're running the Diva. Jesus is going to take down Decop, and the Sound Barrier is going to make sure that this defense stays alive for a decent amount of time. Jesus with a triple kill. Juvenile adds in 2. I believe we're going to another draw, ZP.
It is very likely, and I gotta say, I don't like how complexity played that there at the very end. They got the early pick off on the Juvenile, but by the time they actually decide to engage, Juvenile is back in the fight and ends up getting 2 kills. I understand that Molten Core was up. I get that's a difficult situation, but if you don't feel comfortable going in after 1 pickoff, I don't know if you're ever going to find a good time to go in.
Perhaps some adjustment going on from Bishu as well. There were some moments, one is on a Zarya, not everything being perfectly crisp, not hitting the shots that he wants on Zarya. there towards the end. He prioritized getting the soldier off the top, which was nice, but then his movement towards the turret at the end got him a little out of position. He was unable to shut down that Molten Core, which is why you're running that Diva. We're going to a draw.
One thing I think is really worth noting here for compLexity, though, is that even if this does end up being a 3-0 in favor of Renegades, which would be unfortunate, the maps so far have been much closer than the last time around when we saw compLexity play. So compLexity still has things to work on here and build on with their new additions to their roster. I think Decop and Bishu are still tryouts by the letter of it, and yet they've been good tryouts thus far. compLexity has looked far more competitive.
And it seems like they've actually been able to execute some set plays. They actually did the same thing on first and second in multiple times. So they went into that small room on the side. They went and took the high ground above the first point and then went down. And then they took high ground on second as well. And then, of course, at the end there, it was just a little rushed. They just felt like they needed to go in. Some mispositioning there. But definitely things that I think they can shore up. We're going to be going on to Ilios for another tiebreaker. We didn't think we'd be seeing so much Ilios. And actually, depending on who wins, we might even see 5 more points of it after this.
It's a lot of Ilios.
Yeah.
It's a lot of Greek scenery is what we're getting right now.
You know, and I've always wanted to visit Greece. So this is the closest I'm going to get anytime soon, I think.
Well, with that attitude.
Oh, wow. Yeah, you know, that's a good point. You know,
let your dreams be
we've been bouncing back and forth between cynicism here, I think, on the desk a little bit. But one thing that has remained consistent, and I was going to bring it up earlier, is ZP's proclivity for weather watching. So we've been looking at a lot of sunshine. We had some rocket rain earlier was mentioned, some rockety weather.
I would say in another life I was a weatherman, but I would be doing ill to the good name of the weathermen who, honestly, they might have an edge over me.
I think part of it is just because we're in Denver, where every day
Yes.
we don't know if it's going to be sunny out or if it's going to be snowing. So we
It's
do
gotta
need
be in
those
your
daily
minds.
updates of what's actually going on with the weather.
I will say this, it's pretty telling when you have a day where it's 70 degrees and the next day it is almost blizzard-esque conditions. Just Denver things. I
And then,
remember this
like-
when I was a kid here, and yet it still makes no sense, even as I am far older.
We're going to be rolling onto Ruins here for Ilios as the tiebreaker. We're going back to Ilios to decide Hanamura. We were on Ilios to decide King's Row. Very close matches tonight going into the draw. It seems that compLexity has been playing everyone close. Lately, with these 2 new additions, we'll see how they're able to deal with it. They're going to be running a Widow of their own, so Nicholas versus Mangachu in the Farah v Farah. Again, should be Nicholas's early on. He's going to have a Mercy with him, too.
I do like compLexity's setup here, though. I'm not necessarily sold on Shake on the Mercy, but I do think running the Widow here is going to give Nicholas a lot more room, as we saw earlier in the day. Now, execution is going to matter here, but I think Renegades needs to get on Torque sooner rather than later if they want to take this round.
Well, so far, it has been no eliminations on the board as Torque is getting chased down in the backline. Shake trying to find something. Jesus taking down Torque on that Widowmaker. Nicholas is going to kill Mangachu anyway, trying to get that Mercy behind him.
Well, Nicholas taking the Farah v Farah fight, evening out the fact that his Widow support is gone. And it's going to be Renegades who take first control of the point, despite compLexity leading in the kill feed right now. So compLexity somewhat eyes off the prize. Arguably, we'll see if they can retake this, but now Renegades can just stall out for a long time, Hex, and make compLexity pay for not prioritizing the objective the way that they probably should have.
They will get back in here. That is a giant rocket onto Nicholas, but unable to finish it as Torque comes back in. They are getting more of the kills right now, but it is time to finish off these kills and get on the point. Winston's going to be on there trying to stall out, but that is going to be a headshot onto Juvenile, taking him out. And now that they're set up, ZP, this is a good position for compLexity.
It's a good position to be in on one hand, and yet on the other hand, they were winning that fight the entire time, and they are behind in progress to show for it. You can't make errors like that and expect to win games effectively. That said, if you get in onto a Widow like that in Jesus early on, it's pretty effective. The Widow switch, of course, coming up from Renegades, immediately stuffed here by Nicholas. And Nicholas having a run of things here is getting supported by Shake, but making the most of that support as he picks up 3 kills.
It was the Widow switch and the McCree switch, and Nicholas bodied both of them in rather short order, so holding on to this position. They're doing everything they can to shut him down. Saipe will be on the Diva trying to help and get something done to block some of this damage. Nicholas takes it early. That is Mangachu dropping him from the sky on McCree.
Mangachu in the surprise cowboy, but Nicholas getting rezzed up again. I've seen this movie before, and there it is, over the top. The immediately rezzed Farah getting the run back. That's not Jake, though. That's Nicholas this time around. And Renegades now in a bit of a pickle. They started out reasonable in terms of getting control of the point, not so much in winning fights, and now they're forced where they have to win this. You do see Juvenile way in the back with Primal Rage, ends up giving his life, and I don't know if enough of a distraction was made here for Jesus as he's in a 1v3 effectively, trying to pull this back within reason and not getting a whole lot of help. Throws out the pulse, but at the end does find Bishu. So he's making things happen, but this is going to be enough. It's still going to be difficult. No, he's just going to eat the Helix Rocket.
He did a lot there, even waded through a sound barrier to get those kills as Nicholas back into the sky does see Illuso. He's going to have Justice rain from above. Speaking of weather, takes down 2. He's going to be plucked out, though, by Mangachu as Mangachu takes down Shake, making sure that Nicholas stays dead this time, and they will have the numbers on the point to flip this back over.
So very close between both teams, but here's the takeaway here for compLexity. They only need really one more good fight. So long as it drags out a little bit, they'll take the round, and they'll take the map and even up the series. So Renegades very much on the hot seat here. They're pretty much committed to this McCree, win or lose now.
Mangachu gets some pot shots in early on Nicholas as they try to find the right angle. Torque has been relatively quiet in recent times, so can always go off on that Widow at a moment's notice. We'll see Decop's in here now trying to get something going. He is going to pop Tactical Visor, eaten a lot by the D.Va, got 1 early on.
Tactical Visor isn't bad though. You take up Lucio early on. Oh no. Decop eating the tail end of that. He's going to get thrown off, and now Mangachu, not a lot of pressure on him in the back. We'll see how his anti-air is. Saipe being a threat in the front, Mangachu in the back. Throws up the Deadeye and maybe channeled it for too long. Decop able to take him out after the res. And suddenly compLexity now, big positioning here in the point. They might be able to force out Renegades. If they do that, Hex, they're going to take the round.
A really clutch play by Decop to make sure that that High Noon did not find any targets there. Juvenile's going to be assisted by his friend with the D.Va Matrix, but it is all compLexity towards the tail end of this fight. They flip it back over. Might be time enough for Renegades to at least stall out.
Renegades will get another chance here based on how the fight was only capped at the very end. But they're not going to get a whole lot of time to set up. Mangachu no longer on the McCree. Not a fan of how his Deadeye went down. So it's going to come down to this. Juvenile has a good Primal Range up, so he can create disruption in the backfield. They can't lose anyone early, though. So here comes Renegades. Final fight on the way. Nicholas, Justice reigns into the defensive matrix, gets nothing. A terrible mistake by Nicholas. A great play coming in by Saipe. And now 2 unanswered kills by Renegades as they bring this back. They're at 91%. They take this Hex. They will take this round. And the map.
Seems to be what is happening right now. I am still in awe over that defense matrix. Saipe having another great tank play for him as he completely negated that. Nicholas trying to get back in will get plucked out of the sky by Mangachu Soldier 76. 2 tiebreakers on Ilios, 2 wins for Renegades.
What's really interesting to me is that both teams actually got burned by far too ambitious ultimate attempts. First, you see Mangachu going in for the Deadeye, which was frankly a bad position, and he just gets punished by a casual Helix Rocket to the feet. Then, to top it all off, you see Nicholas going in there with a barrage, and it gets negated by Saipe. I guess he didn't see Saipe going in, but it still was painful because if you just didn't use the barrage at all, there's a much better chance of compLexity actually holding that fight out.
I don't think you saw him. Saipe was kind of on the flank. Those mobilities are always up very quickly for D.Va, but a beautiful play regardless.
Yeah, and I mean, you're looking for that target of Ana, so it's hard to judge whether or not that was a over-aggressive move, maybe a little premature, or if it really was just kind of a good counterplay and a happenstance there on Ilios. But whichever way you slice it, that brings the series to 2-0 in favor of Renegades. Let's, where our minds are still in Ilios, let's look back onto Hanamura because there was some crazy stuff we saw. Namely, we saw a lot of Torbjorn. So let's talk a little bit about the Torbjorn play that we saw coming into this one, CP.
Well, the Tor play that you see, part of its benefit is that you do create a big distraction for people that are running flanking DPS heroes. We saw Saipe run into the wrong end of a turret many a time. And sure, that's maybe part on Saipe, but it's also part of the fact that the turret is an obstacle that must be overcome. You have to deal with it before you can really have freedom to reign in the backfield. So it creates enough of a distraction that your defense has time to react to, say, your Genjis and Tracers coming in. And that's why you've been seeing Torb have pretty good effect from time to time, especially as we've been seeing more Genjis and Tracers in play recently.
I think the armor cannot be overlooked, that if you do get a full team wipe, everyone's going to have armor, making it that much more difficult next time, much in the same way why we lump him in with Symmetra is because it is that same style of hero. It also is very good against a Pharah, and even though Pharah is a soft counter to it because she can outrange it and hit it from distance. That's sometimes half your clip if he's healing it, 3 to 4 rockets it takes. And then meanwhile, if you get just a little too close to that turret, it has a very long range. And you can underestimate it a little bit as a Pharah saying, I only need this one more rocket in there. You stay in there a second too long and it knocks you out of the sky. We saw Magnitude drop to a Torb turret a couple of times. Maybe once, but
yeah, no, I think I think a couple of times I wasn't keeping track, but Joe definitely was on anti-Pharah duty and to some extent anti-Tracer duty. Actually had a few kills on to Tracers trying to get in and flank. But I want to talk about the final push there from RNG. They got a couple picks. I think it was actually the final on first when they were in the round 3. Jesus and Mangachu both got picks early on in a fight, and they just weren't able to execute. Is that something that Widow compositions suffer from? Is actually executing on picks after you get them, or was that just maybe a little bit of a misplay by RNG?
I mean, Widow plays as well things where you have to say it's a little bit of a misplay there. It's not that one composition is more prone. I mean, I guess Widow in general is more high risk, high reward, but sometimes you get picks and you're not able to immediately follow through. One thing I want to point out before we get too far moved, though, is that compLexity lost Ilios in a tiebreaker by a very small margin. You know what that margin was? If they had just simply taken first control of the point, not only would Renegades have not won when they did, compLexity, if they held the level of control that they did throughout the map, would have taken it. So if they go back and analyze what happened there, they will have to go back and figure out, how do we win the first fight, not cap early on, instead give up a free cap to Renegades, because that entire interchange is probably what cost them that tiebreaker.
We talk a lot about like staying on the point at the end, you know, in third and in overtime. We don't often talk about staying on the point at the very beginning of the map, and in this case, definitely something that came to bear in the end. Well, we're going back onto control. This time it is going to be Nepal. Renegades up 2-0. compLexity, they have been fighting so hard. Can they pick up at least a map on Renegades, or is Renegades going to do the 3-0 sweep?
This is compLexity's map pick, and it's obvious because if it was Renegade's map pick, we'd be on Oasis by now. Oasis is a map that Renegade's very good at. They beat compLexity on Oasis in our previous match that happened yesterday. Renegades lost on Lijiang Tower, so compLexity's pick, they want to take something that's definitely not Oasis. We can't go to Ilios. Oddly didn't take the Lijiang, but still going to Nepal I think is interesting. They're going to be able to run their 76 play, which has been strong for them. It's a good compromise, but very obviously, if it was Renegade's pick, we'd be on Ilios. That is a map, or not Ilios rather, Oasis, that's a map they dominate.
I'm actually very sad here because we're on Sanctum, it's Renegades, and we're seeing a 76 instead of a Junkrat. Clearly, teams have started to adapt to the Junkrat picks and all the rest, so maybe it's not as effective. But end of an era, it lasted for 2 Sanctums. Either way, Mangachu gets taken down immediately by Shake, ends up being a bit of poke, and it's the Ana that pushes him over the edge. So compLexity now with a good opportunity, but with Jesus winning the Roadhog fight, it's all evened up here. Oh no, that was a boop off the edge. Juvenile taking the long fall, courtesy of Nicholas. And that really could be the turning point here. They no longer have a shield to shield them from poke. They have to back out. Now compLexity, we'll see if they can get first control of the point.
Well, Mangachu dying first, you know what I think. That's what you get for not playing Junkrat. Nicholas goes down to Sherlocky there as this fight continues to go on the point, but that will be compLexity playing the objective now, prioritizing the objective early on. They will grab first control. Have to get some bodies on here, though. They are going to boost Bishu very early on. He's going to throw down a very early grab, gets very little, but takes down Sherlocky, gets something out of it. A nice hook on a Juvenile will call the end of this fight as he goes to the bottomless void.
It's a better start here for compLexity, and also on Sanctum, it's a map where you can really punish teams after you get first control, because getting back in, you have to go through some pretty narrow areas. So we'll see how compLexity can choke Renegades out here if possible. Bishu at 70% energy, good start to that.
A good opening for him as they're trying to hold a little further forward, but decide better of it, are going to go back, eat a lot of poke, does Nicholas, but
Nicholas got 2 just rolling right in, and that's not even a barrage, that's just 1 good rocket, taking down 2 at a time. Of course, the rest of the team poking in. He's got barrage up for the next fight, Hex.
Nicholas has had himself a game. Odd that we see them running the Pharah and not Mangachu, but generally you don't see a ton of Pharah on this point, going for the flanking barrage, maybe thinking better of it. His team calling out that they've already rotated through.
Well, you want to be there when the fight engages. You don't want to be off on a flank in the middle of nowhere, as we saw this weekend. And Nicholas this time, fighting with the rest of his team, actually struggling to get in good position for a barrage, but with Juvenile dying early to decop, he can actually save it here, Hex. He doesn't have to throw it in here. He can maybe wait for that big ambush.
Now the economy going to be important, but it seems as though Renegades wants to back out now, don't want to go in without full force, going to get behind their Reinhardt rolling in, but still have yet to find entry in here. They are going to come out, try to get this grab going.
Well, Saipe telegraphing this a mile away, going to eat an Earth Shatter for his trouble. compLexity well on top of that, dives in with the follow through. Torque going to be picking up 2.
Well,
Although we see Renegades bring it right back with Mangachu on the tech visor.
Yeah, meanwhile, Mangachu with the tech visor, they also put some pressure on that point and were able to sneak cap it in the backline despite not decisively winning that fight. Joe Meister able to find Juvenile there. May have been a boop, did not quite save Bishu. Taking down Jur. Mangachu trying to bring this back for his team. He's got another of his DPS in there. Anna's going to desperately go in there and throw a grenade on there.
It's hero mode here for Mangachu coming in where Renegades was really on the back foot. Was able to come in off the flank and has created at least the opportunity to come in, and oh no, the barrage in over the top. It is the kill pact there between two. Barrage and Soldier canceling out. And compLexity, though, still on the winning end of this here. More people on the point here. You see Shake healing everyone up that's on the point. And this should be a retake by compLexity. Renegades in rough shape.
Well, a very good Zarya map, and that clearly is Bishu's most comfortable character as he adds in a 3rd kill for that fight. He's had himself a nice stage here to open up. Nepal is going to hold on to the door here, try to block them from even coming onto the point. He gets a nap for his troubles, a nice hook, a nice Earth Shatter.
That was Torque just throwing Juvenile into the pit once more. Juvenile getting well acquainted with the depths in the fall, let me tell you here. compLexity still with momentum, moving in here. No one on Shaken this entire time. Just able to get all sorts of healing from the back. Torque gonna clean house with the whole hog, and that is going to be the first stage. compLexity just wondering to themselves, why couldn't we have won this back on Ilios? Because it would have counted for a full map there instead of 1/3 of a map.
Well, they clearly have their favorite control maps that they like playing. Lijiang and Nepal being the two of them, they look pretty good there. We will have a brief pause as we work out whatever issue that may be.
So we have one stage under our belt here, and it's been interesting to watch here thus far. Certainly, I think we will run with the narrative that compLexity a little bit more comfortable perhaps on Nepal. Certainly the inner workings of Sanctum. We saw Bishu have a much better game.
Yeah, no, I mean, we saw in this one especially, but even in previous maps, we've seen a lot of decop, Bishu, and so actually Shake quite a bit in that kill feed. And in that map, that's the Ana that I want to play. It's just being able to sit back, you know, heal everyone up, throw some nades in there. He had free reign in the back of those fights there, and it led to them getting victory on the first point.
Well, we talked about compLexity when we knew that they were going to be running with new tanks or trying out new tanks, and we said that the person it was going to affect most was Shake, because Shake's job is to keep those tanks alive, but he has to be able to do that by second nature, and he has to know where those tanks are going to be, and those tanks have to be alive for him to keep them alive. But now you're seeing that he understands where they're going to be. He's able to throw in some damage as well. It seems like he's having a much easier time working with these two players than he was with the previous players we saw on this roster.
I just think the communication is clearly much better between the two. You're not seeing many crazy deaths going in because when you looked at compLexity's play when they had KO and Chow on their team, where many people attest that those are very good players in other scenarios. They didn't really click well with compLexity. You saw them going up on their own to some extent, breaking line of sight with Shake. You have to think that for whatever reason, Decop and Bishu are much more on the same page. And clearly, even though compLexity has had some pretty rough luck with tiebreakers here tonight, they have been having a much more superior performance than we saw back in week 1 of the OCS.
I mean, 2 draws, it definitely a stark difference. Let's take a step back and talk about tanks in general. We talk a lot about damage dealers and the triple threat and, you know, these different team compositions. But how do some of these changes really affect how the tanks have to interact with the rest of their team, and how have we been seeing that come to fruition?
A lot of it that can be overlooked sometimes is simply staying alive, simply being another body that the other team has to worry about. When you have tanks that are so aggressive and they don't get the kills in there, not only is it getting shields down and getting the utility of Zarya out of the way, but oftentimes you just want someone else to take some bullets for you. That is the essence of tanking. Just be another target so they can't simply focus me, and these tanks have much greater sustainability.
Well, we're going to see these new tanks of compLexity face off against the old tanks of, well, Juvenile, I guess, in this case, as we're back into Nepal.
We are back in here. It is going to be the Village stage that we roll into. Of course, compLexity winning the Sanctum just a moment ago. And on Village, this is where we tend to see a little bit more fair play. And we will see a disparity early on here, Hex, where one fair combo going to be running with an Ana Shake, more all-purpose. Sherlocky all in on making Mangachu the very best he can be.
Well, after losing a stage, I think you just let Mangachu run as much as he wants. Jesus takes some very early damage, has to rewind. Already, Nicholas takes him down with the help of that Ana grenade.
Oh my goodness, Jesus running into all sorts of explosives early on here. And now, Mangachu, hot pursuit, aerial battle underway. Who's gonna be Top Gun here? That's gonna be the question. Rockets coming out. Nicholas able to stay alive in this, despite Mangachu's support. He's fighting this back and, oh, takes one right to the gut, 10 things out, but did distract Mangachu for quite a while there as the rest of compLexity is trying to secure first cap, and they do.
Regardless of how that worked out, I love how Nicholas played that. Just make sure Mangachu and the Mercy are busy the entire time, retreating, trying to just stay alive as much as possible. Now Mangachu, very low, has to get out of there. You don't have to win every fight to be impactful in fights. That's what we saw Nicholas do right there.
Nicholas is able to pull two people out because you saw Sherlocky there being the support. It's really tough not to make a bad Top Gun pun right now. I'm just going to restrain myself and not mention wingmen of any sort, but next fight here is underway. Mangachu coming in, barrage at the right, gets one rocket on the Nicholas, and Nicholas right now just rope dumping him, pulling him back out of the fight, and Mangachu diving in, but this is nowhere near the point as compLexity is still holding on to control. I kind of feel like he's getting baited here. He might get the kill, but what does he really gain?
Nicholas has activated Taunt very clearly. Mangachu cannot attack any other heroes until he goes through Nicholas first, and Mangachu still, target priority has to be an issue that gets brought up right now. Nicholas doing a great job by dying to Mangachu. I know that makes very little sense, but
and makes
that's exactly
no sense
what's
out
happening.
of context,
Yes.
but makes perfect sense in context because he's been winning Farah v Farah, gets the double barrage here, takes out two, but Nicholas is there, gets the fall through, and still gonna be compLexity holding on here. Late Dragon Blade coming in here by Saipei. I don't really agree with this decision here, Renegades-wise, because even if he got 2 kills, he's not taking the fight. Instead, ends up eating a bit of laser instead.
Bishu also playing really well again, fully charged. That was an interesting Graviton, but it might not come back to bite him. I think it was supposed to catch the Genji flanking around trying to get in, but regardless, they're still in really good position, 85% here.
I kind of feel like if this is a competitive play right now, Mangachu be saying, I've killed that Farah every time, guys. It's like, well, yes.
It's not about the kills, it's when you get them and how quickly you get them. A barrage over top from Nicholas, gonna crack that shield. Juvenile already down, and now they're gonna send in Zarya for the cleanup as well. Bishu looks very comfortable. Nicholas,
Okay.
he's winning the Farah battle. Simply winning the Farah battle.
Mangachu's body
Yes,
just flying into the horizon.
That is.
Some say it's still orbiting the Earth to this day, but compLexity, very strong showing here, and they neutralized Mangachu by feeding him Nicholas's body at predetermined intervals, but much better showing here for compLexity. 2-0. Renegades stuck trying to make the reverse sweep if they want to close out the series here in Nepal.
The most apt visual description of the Farah v Farah battle. Mangachu going off into orbit, being of very little effect. Very well done from Nicholas. You know, the questions were when we saw compLexity beat Renegades is how are they dealing with Mangachu on Farah? Because it's been a constant question for this compLexity team. They've had multiple answers for it. None quite as cool as Nicholas simply making Mangachu chase him around the entire map. Mangachu now off of the Farah is going to on 76, perhaps trying to exact revenge on Nicholas.
Well, at the very least, this is going to force Mangachu to stay somewhat near his team and not dive Nicholas into a point that is far away from the actual battle that matters. So we'll see if this works out a little bit better here for Renegades. Both teams charging in into that point. See what comes of it.
Now Saipei going in early, trying to get some damage done. Going to deflect on his way out. You see a lot more aggressive Genjis now trying to just be the role of the tank when you're only running a single Winston. Jesus takes down Nicholas right away. Nicholas now seeing that Mangachu is not on the Farah, might switch early on. We'll see if he wants to roll with this Farah, but early on it does appear that Renegades, with positioning at least on the point.
Well, you are right. Nicholas is going to swap after seeing that Mangachu is no longer on the Farah. He can't bait him quite as effectively when he's on a 76. So Renegades, better opening here. They get the first take. Now we'll see how they hold it here as compLexity trying to come in here through the left side, but it's Nicholas off the right flank. So Nicholas trying to draw some attention here, maybe let the rest of his team come in through the front, but it's been a very slow opening here, compLexity. But with that hook from Torque, now they have an opportunity to go in. 65 is open to Jesus. Special delivery from the back. Fine shake, explodes him, and suddenly compLexity's not going to have much in the way of healing as Joe Meister's almost out of this fight as well.
Oh, very nice. Nicholas does finally get Sherlocky. He's been on him for a while now. Torque does grab a kill as well, but they are going to need a little bit more from the side of compLexity to bring it back, and they will not get it. Jesus running wild.
Well, they're losing this fight in the end because they lost their source of healing. Everyone wasn't able to actually heal towards the end. And sure, they're still in and around the point, and maybe they take it back in a bit of a brawl, but it's that pulse bomb that made that far less effective there for compLexity. Oh no, Bishu moving in. Charged up Zarya. That's how you get Graviton up quickly, and that's also how you melt down a lot of people. Finally, compLexity will take control of this point.
Well, Shake had come back in and exacted revenge onto Jesus, who had given him that Pulse Bomb gift, returning the gift with a nade onto him. That was the first kill that they got. Then Shake able to get healing onto his team, but that was a pivotal kill, as you mentioned early on. Bishu had been playing great, got the boost early, and that's going to lead him to the Zarya ultimate. Again, Torque on McCree. Let's see some game tape Torque.
So this is, of course, a bit of a question. His McCree wasn't bad earlier, wasn't dominant. If you get it more towards the dominant side of the scale, it could be a different look, but he's going to have Winston in his face early on. Has to back out. Gets a sound bear, which lets him be more confident in where he goes. He finds Saipei early on. So for compLexity, they back out, get the counter engage done pretty well. Graviton comes in for Bishu here to finish things out. Don't really think he needed the Graviton there in the least. So they're going to be down an ultimate here, even as they hold it.
Well, yet again, Torque has done enough to at least make those flankers think twice. He got Jesus, he killed Saipei with a flashbang of all things, allows Nicholas to come in here too. So far, Torque, it hasn't been the amazing 4 kills that we see on some McCrees, but effective in playing with his team.
Well, the thing is, he got out when he got dove on, and McCree is a pretty juicy target for Winston's as they dive in, so even if Torque doesn't get a whole ton of kills, if he's drawing attention, that can be effective, as we very much saw in the last round with Nicholas and Mangachu. Still, though, 70% for compLexity, they only need 2 more fights here, X.
Absolutely correct, and they will have some ults to work with. Deadeye, of course, very difficult to hit on pro-level teams, but Decup's Earthshatter could end this fight before it starts. He does get Lucio, who's still trying to drop the beat at the moment, and there's the High Noon combination with it, 2 kills.
Deadeye really likes working well with Earthshatter. It's kind of hard to get out of his line of sight when you're on the ground. So now Renegades, they lose that one relatively quickly. They end up getting staggered because Jesus was just looking for a place to hide. Now at 95%. This is rough for Renegades. We'll see if they even get in the point again. They're going to be pretty late in coming back in. They will get back in the point via Juvenile, but their positioning is desperation at best. Electric Cowboy on the field. Torque, your time to shine. Not getting it again. Ends up getting slept, but Renegades can't get back in the point. So compLexity reversing course here. This is not only not a draw, it's relatively dominant for compLexity over the course of the entire map.
A well-deserved siesta. I don't think this is going to be Nicholas simply flying away from everyone, but it should be. It really should be.
That'd be fun if you could put in your own play of the game and just go, show Nicholas running away. Show Mangachu flying away from the fight. That would be great. That was actually the real story on the previous round. But
just follow us on Twitter at GameCarbon. We're going to have a highlight video of Nicholas just flying away from fights as the rest of his team dominates on the other side.
It's fitting for Nepal. You win the fight without any violent action. You just go away. It's something that Zenyatta would approve of if he wasn't throwing orbs at people and kicking them in the face. There's actually a weird conundrum there. But aside, compLexity played that very intelligently, and Renegades felt a little bit lost.
Yeah, we're not going to get too philosophical, especially with Jesus on the field. You know, it's just hard not to. But anyway, well, yeah. So let's pick that apart and let's talk about Pharah Mercy versus Pharah running away. Because if you do the math, well, so the first fight actually, Nicholas even got a pick. He got a first kill onto Tracer. And then the rest of the fight, he was just flying around. So talk us through that one more time here.
Well, I've talked about the combination in as far as being resources. And I think resources are really a thing that can be overlooked at times. But when you're running a combo, that's 2 people. And I've always said, well, if you want to defeat a combo, you have to put in 2 people to be able to defeat it, whether it's a Zen, McCree. There's a multitude of ways to do it. But if you can make that 2 people try to trade out for your 1, you're already winning the resource battle, and then the ground fight gets so much easier for your team.
Well, Nicholas just made Mangachu look silly there because, really, once Nicholas removed himself from the fight, the better move would have been to just kill the other people in the fight. It's going to take Nicholas a while to get back. He's not going to be able to boost back in and over. But if your hubris is such that you feel, I need to kill the other Pharah no matter what, well, congratulations, you've killed the other Pharah and you've lost the fight. And it's actually interesting to see Nicholas make those decisions there and how it worked out because you don't always see fights break down that way. It's a unique example of how decision-making does matter in this game, and it's not just about getting kills in certain situations.
And I actually really have to compliment compLexity coming in. We had a lot of questions about them, and especially in their performance in week 1. It was not good. But with their new roster, they're looking a lot stronger. And I actually have to give them, they have been really patient in a couple of these situations. they did it a little bit on Hanamura, but they really did it when they noticed the Pharah. Mangachu had switched off of Pharah. They knew they weren't going to get that first point. They just hunkered down in that side room, and then they waited for their team to come back, and then they retook it, and they just are looking very calm and collected out there.
Yeah, I mean, compLexity, it feels like they're in more of a comfort zone, and realistically, they've had far more reliable tank play. I think, whatever it may be, Decop and Bishu are a much better fit than KO and Chao were. Bottom line.
Yep.
Yeah. And for whatever reason, we can speculate, but they're just performing a lot better. The next map is going to be Dorado, and this, I think, is the first map not selected by compLexity, as they were the home team coming in. So why do you think Dorado was selected here by Renegades?
Well, we've seen teams run dive on this very well. Of course, the prime example would be Luminosity Gaming running dive on this. Dive with a Pharah, more specifically. Again, Mangachu is generally going to be running a Pharah until it proves that it's not working or someone forces him off of it. I think you'll see a similar composition to that. And they have all the pieces to run a dive composition on offense, so if they so choose. That would be my first guess on why they'd go to Dorado.
Right, and I mean, the good news for Mangachu here is that even if Nicholas employs the Joestar secret family technique again and just running away repeatedly, you're dealing with a payload this time. It's much more easier to stay focused and actually get value out of chasing someone out of the fight compared to Control, where you really can beat yourself if you're not paying too much attention.
Yeah, and taking a step back here, looking at the map selection, compLexity have been so close to pulling it back. They finally get a victory here, giving the map selection over to Renegades. Renegades, they only have to win one more map, and these next two maps are going to be selected by them. And so just based on the way that the rules work out, they actually have a pretty good chance of taking this one home. As we're going to be going on to Dorado right now. And if this is a victory for compLexity, we'll go to a best of 5 fifth map, returning to Hybrid. But let's see if compLexity can do it here on Dorado.
Well, we're taking a look here at the Renegades defense as it comes out first. compLexity choosing to attack. They want to keep on the momentum, but Renegades, they're coming out here with the early Symmetra here once more, Hex, so they are more interested at the very least at trying to slow it down a bit, get the early teleporter up, and then make compLexity have to go through that slog of an attack on the early Dorado courtyard.
I may be making too big of a deal about early sentries, but it's because yesterday we saw a team give up 50% charge before Symmetra fired a single shot. A single shot, a single shield. They could not find the sentries. You give up 50% to a teleporter. So that is, of course, what I'm looking at early on. Jura's going to be up front setting up. And they have a very specific style. Generally, Symmetra set up in the same place around here. You want to get that big burst damage from the sentries early on. That's as much burst as you can get. Of course, she was reworked so she can put up those 6 sentries. If they don't swing around, I think he sees it already, so they're going to give up very little charge. But it was such a big deal in some of these things that it can't be overlooked.
You definitely want to kill the turrets. There's no reason to give up the charge. The turrets aren't going to kill you, but the problem is that you don't want to have the Symmetra get the teleporter up just a little bit earlier. And we've seen plenty of times that 5% actually can be game-breaking.
Yep, so the Zarya bubble, the wipe on the side, 4%, but he hits a giant orb somewhere in there, and Jared gets 30% already on the Symmetra.
Pennywise, pound foolish there, and the pound was the Symmetra orb rolling down the field.
That's what happened. Regardless, 50% in very short order for the Symmetra on defense, looking good. Jesus does take down Joe Meister. Nicholas very sneaky behind on the Widow.
This can be very effective. I actually like that they're going for this. I will probably regret that statement as Nicholas doesn't hit anything, knowing the caster curse, but this is where you can get a free shot here onto Symmetra, and he gets it! Symmetra going down immediately, and now that Symmetra's out of this, you don't have to worry about the teleporter for a while, and you're gonna split the attention of the defense here. Now they have to worry about Nicholas and the sightlines from the back, and that's gonna open up opportunities from the front.
We used to see not only a Widow, but several heroes. He's going for the spawn camp, trying to get Jura's. Jura's not wanting to give up on the charge that he has already 80%. He cannot fight down there against the Symmetra. You don't want to get in her beam range, especially with your grappling hook down. He does not know where it is, but on Dorado, we've seen flanks like this work very, very well. Look at all the attention he's drawing, if nothing else.
Well, while he's looking at them, here's the rest of compLexity. They still have 5 people. He's gonna eat the Helix rocket there and go down, but we'll see if compLexity can make the most of this distraction. It's looking like they haven't here. Unfortunately for them, Mangachu gonna be turning his attention to the front line once more. Torque not getting the early hook, and unfortunately compLexity, their gambit does not pay off.
Well, Jur did decide during that to get out of there off of the Symmetra, so despite all of the early charges and everything they had going for him, about 80%, not going to have a teleporter up. The play is somewhat effective though, but here we are restarting the map essentially, and 2 minutes have been burned off.
It's not a bad opening here for Renegades. I think compLexity actually had a smart way of dealing with it. The execution, just a little bit lacking. I don't fault them for trying, but now 2 minutes are effectively gone without a lot to show for it as Decomp gets taken on the long ride by Juvenile. So they're getting caught out completely here, X. This will be another defensive hold.
Rotating onto stairs, always a risky gambit. More times than not, we've seen that area turned into an abattoir as they will be continuing their aggressive defense here. Saipe nearly having a Graviton, and we're only have 1 minute and 30 seconds left, ZP.
This is do or die now for compLexity, because if they get held here, the odds that they actually hold on to their own defense, while not impossible, pretty low. And they're going to be running to a beat grinder here. Saipe holding on to that Graviton, and he's going to get hooked in. Will get healed up here by the Ana. Grenade is on him, able to shield himself out, so it's a hook from Torque that doesn't have payoff. Would have been good, but now they still have to worry about the Graviton. And there it is. The Graviton comes in, pulls in 3. Soundbear gonna try mitigate as Torque comes in with a flanking whole hog, and the counter Graviton is successful. It's a nice counter punch by compLexity here, Hex. It gives them 3 kills, and this looks like they will be able to cut through this early defense of Renegades.
A beautiful counter push as Torque was able to stay out of that Graviton. They ended up soundbearing as well. He comes around on the flank, pushes them all out of position. They used all their ults that they had, but as you mentioned, coming into that fight, do or die, it looks like they will at least get this first point and extend the map. Juvenile looking for something. He's gonna get an Earthshatter down, but doesn't get much.
I mean, he really intimidates the shield of the opposing Reinhardt. That's about it. It was just shattering from that, except still totally fine. Either way, compLexity gonna clean up this last gasp here from Renegades. Renegades actually threw some useful resources like Earthshatter into that for no reason, which means that compLexity has time here to open things up and start getting control of seconds. So Renegades put themselves in somewhat of a bad situation now.
And a couple of times tonight, both with Hammers and with Renegades, both known for their very aggressive defenses, you have to wonder if their calls are not to go in would be a little better off. They will be going up on this ledge here, trying to take high ground. Gonna check behind them, which is smart. We've seen hooks and everything come along, and they were rotating around behind.
So Renegades are going to be dropping in from above. Not a whole lot to go with it. And Nicholas setting up on what could be a very impactful flank here with attack visors. Comes in on the back. Sherlocky misses a sleep dart. Jesus with the fall through, so limits it to at least just 1. So 5v5, a better trade for the defense, in fact. Both Roadhogs getting work done here, however.
We have seen some brutal hooks come down on both sides, and it has been the Roadhog show, especially from Torque, as he had that saving play early on. He's gonna have a sleep dart to clean up Saipe right here. They're gonna stagger him, and wow, that is not how you want to wake up in the morning.
No, I would not want a gigantic German man smashing me into a wall to wake up. I'm a pretty deep sleeper, but even that seems a little bit excessive.
Not doing phrasing. They continue to roll down on the front as they've got all the momentum in their favor. Decomp will have his Earthshatter up for this side. Torque has been getting so much work done, and we had questions about Torque. He's shown a lot today.
Well, he does pull down Mangachu early on here. Mangachu ends up getting caught in the Graviton because of that hook, and yet he doesn't matter. He gets enough support that his attack visor takes down 2 and just punishes the compLexity side. And it's turnabout fair play here for Sleeping Zarya.
It does appear to be so, as
they
there
have their
goes
own Reinhardt
Bijou.
alarm clock.
Well, a complete reset here. A minute left, so very likely one more push. It's a hard point to get back to in a quick manner anyways. It might be time to go for the right side flank, but they do have eyes over there watching it. Mangachu is watching that left side flank. They will have all the information they need. Gonna have to be a gutsy play. Bijou is over on a D.Va. They have no ults to work with, but none on either side. Just vanilla Overwatch incoming for this next fight to see what they can get done on this Dorado offense.
You say that, and yet Mangachu here about to have the attack visor up. He's already built it up between fights. Even Juvenile is going to have an Earthshatter, so compLexity going to have to find a way to do this despite some overwhelming odds. If they could pick off Mangachu with, say, a hook early on, it'd be great. But speaking of hooks, it's actually going to be Jesus getting onto Nicholas. That's a Roadhog on Soldier action that's going to happen. And now Mangachu looking for a big cleanup. Has a D.Va in his face, and D.Va gets swept. That's huge, except for the part where he gets woken up immediately. So doesn't quite free Mangachu the way he was looking for. In fact, Mangachu going the fall as a result of that broken sleep. And yet Jesus here is still on the point, can still bring this back to Renegades, especially with the sound barrier now in his favor.
Well, sound barrier does keep him alive just for the moment, but it is on Saipe with his supercharged Zari to try to get in there, but he is hooked. They are all getting very low. There's a grab, but is there anyone to clean it up? I don't think so. It's going to buy time for Juvenile to get out here. Can he hit an Earthshatter? He finally gets one.
He hits it, and it's 4 people getting knocked down. The fall through there, not there for either the Graviton or the Earthshatter. And now Nicholas bringing some punching power to this fight. In over the top, gonna be picking up 2. compLexity just so close to extending out Dorado. 3 unanswered kills here, Hex. And Renegades might have to give this up here. They are fighting very much outnumbered, and still, they go for the delay.
Renegades doesn't know how to give up on a defense. They're going to stay out here trying to get aggressive on it, but regardless, it will be compLexity finally taking the second point. 90 seconds to close out Dorado. Going to be a hard order. Juvenile trying to get out there. Does not, as Torque cleans him up late. A victim of a split spawn.
Juvenile just going, okay, guys, I know I'm late. Just let me get back here in time. And no, he gets gunned down mercilessly. So that's a little bit rough for Renegades. It's certainly going to delay them in trying to reset up their defense. And we'll be giving up a lot of free payload pushes. compLexity looking to push the advantage. They still have a bit of momentum on their side. 3 ultimates in the next fight, and who knows how explosive Bishu can make things.
They're going to have a difficult time getting back to top, and in fact, they are not able to get to top, so going for an enormous flank instead. The rocket does not hit right away. Here comes Magachu's visor. Is it going to get enough? He gets Earthshattered.
Earthshatter comes in, and compLexity still making the most of this fight. Earthshatter, no. 5 unanswered kills, so my goodness, they are able to push this forward. And now for Renegades, the question is, can they even get out and contest this effectively? The payload almost near that final point of victory. Renegades must come out here and stall. This is always a rough situation. Juvenile gets hooked in immediately, has to back out, not able to be healed up. But yet, Jesus on the flank was able to get to the cart. Why? You had 2 kills. Someone, please, stop emulating Cloud9 and Apex. It clearly didn't work out for them. It's not going to work out for you. Get on the point in these key situations.
So what you're saying is don't pretendo to be Mendo?
No.
You're not saying that? I'm saying that. I've always wanted to say that. I say it a lot, actually.
It's not the first time I've heard that.
No, I do say it. I find myself intensely clever and funny, but I'm the only one. Well, regardless, that is not the way you want to lose that map. Not at all.
That is frustrating because they still had plenty of people alive, just didn't have anyone alive on the cart because Juvenile fell early, got hooked in. He didn't have the health pool to actually stay alive. Just someone, anyone, get on the payload, please. Either way.
Good for compLexity. Good for compLexity. They gutted out that second point especially and just got a lot of kills. I have to say Juvenile found himself in a lot of rough situations in that game on his Reinhardt, hoping he could be invisible as he went by. That was actually a big play that they lost him because then they're unable to rotate up to top, which which defenses like to hold. But you can only do that if you've got your Reinhardt up there because it's a hallway and you're going to eat a lot of damage doing it. So him being down means they couldn't rotate to top, had to hold lower, gave up high ground again. So that split spawn really ended up hurting them.
It definitely played a big role in compLexity, able to keep up the momentum there, but credit where credit is due. compLexity kept the foot on the throat there. They didn't back off. They didn't really give Renegades time to settle. So compLexity knew when they had an advantage, and they pushed it to maximum ability. Now, taking a look here at the defense, as it sets up here for compLexity, there's no Symmetra in sight. They just want to play this about as traditionally as you can. It is going to be a 3-tank defense with Nicholas being the DPS in charge in the back.
But this is what we assumed why Renegades picked Dorado. They will be running the dive composition very similar to Luminosity Gaming, so just look to see what Mangachu can get done. He's going to hit rockets and call out who he's hit. They find out Bishu right there. Might be some inexperience coming into play as he gets himself caught up, but the bait comes in as Torque takes down Mangachu. Torque has had himself a game and a half.
Well, not only has Torque had a good game and a half, but Mangachu has never seen a potential kill that he hasn't chased down. That's something we've clearly learned from tonight.
Saipe goes in, doing part of the tank role that you have to do on your Genji when you're only running the Winston, getting in there, getting the deflect, trying to bait out some of the abilities. So early kills, regardless, it does seem like they're now set up. Their deep dive comes in from Juvenile. Can he get anything?
I'm not sure how Juvenile is going in here. The rest of his team isn't even there to follow through. He's lucky he doesn't get punched by the hook, and maybe it works out, but that was risky. Now, with the trade out here, it is going to be 5v5 pretty soon. Mangachu in over the top, not much pressure on him. Saipe not getting a whole lot of health here, has to basically make his own way through life, but it doesn't matter. Mangachu's picked off too. He's going to put up the Dragon Blade late into the fight, and I don't really agree with this late Dragon Blade. He does pick up 2, but everyone else from compLexity was already off the point. Now he's just not going to have it for second.
Well, it's hard to identify the point in some situations, as has been clear, but he does finish out a couple of the kills there, I guess guaranteeing that they're going to win the fight, not going to fall to any shenanigans, which might be an Earthshatter or a Graviton, which were his 2 targets. Getting very aggressive here, that is going to be compLexity having to fall back. Dorado's at one map that you have to know what ground you have to give up, and look at this, they're going to 2v1 Nicholas up top. They keep rolling through. This is the power of the dive composition momentum.
I'm just impressed with how teams find new and innovative ways to fight compLexity in their spawn doors. This is really, that is the running story for me right now. Oh my goodness.
Valid point. Very valid point. But Dorado is his story as old as time. We've seen teams just not understand what ground they have to give up and fighting and losing fights, and they didn't have to be out there to begin with.
Oh, Mangachu coming in over the top, was looking for the barrage over the doorway. Gonna use it now. Doesn't get much there in that barrage. In fact, just takes it on a dart to the head. So compLexity going to be dealing with this high aggression coming in from Renegades, but Renegades was pushing the payload this entire time, and even though Torque is coming off with some great McCree cleanup, has 2, looking for the triple. Lucio darting away. Will he escape? No. The answer is no. Torque picks up 3 before the end. The payload, though, goes very far for Renegades.
He had to switch onto McCree and probably to deal with Mangachu, but McCree's still very good at the cleanup. Probably one of the best heroes at the cleanup who has 0 mobility anyway, because he lets his bullets do the running.
Next fight here on the way. Bishu holding on to the Graviton. Could it be a dagger here in just keeping Renegades back? You see Juvenile leading the way very deep in here. Definitely going to be biting it soon. Juvenile's leap ins, very aggressive, and yet it's opened up the way for Jesus. He finds Torque early on, and yet Bishu, 2 kills here. Late Graviton here for cleanup. Bishu, right place, right time, not only for the backline kills, but also for the finishing Graviton.
Decop does add in his own right there. compLexity, the only way to win this and send us to a 5 outright is to stop Renegades from completing the map. Bishu experimenting with some jumps right there, as they will set up both teams at full strength now as they look to get in. Saipe trying to get some chip damage in. Has to be a little bit careful. We'll put that deflect up.
Well, we're still in an era where the Mercy is mainly focused on Mangachu, so even though Saipe is going to have Dragon Blade here, doesn't have a Zarya to support him, not going to have Ana Dart, so he's really just doing this all on his own. It's not the most well-supported Genji, so it is very hard for Saipe to find his moments. It can be even harder when he's knocked on the ground by a Reinhardt. He's immediately taken out, and this push stops right here.
It's forced him to hang out with his Lucio much more than a Genji would like to. Not that they're not best of friends, but here comes a res.
So they're going to burn the res on that, which is interesting. It wasn't a close fight to begin with, but maybe they just like the positioning, and hey, it's working out. Saipe coming to the backline, picks up 2 with the Dragon Blade, and the res actually catching compLexity a bit off guard here. It's a little bit unconventional to use it when you've had no pickoffs and it's not super close, but they get the surprise initiation. compLexity gives up second, and now they're in a bit of trouble here as Renegades starts rolling towards last.
Well, I think Sherlocky was done playing Mercy anyway, as he does switch over to the Ana. Saipe does get torqued very early on with a reflect right there. But Sherlocky using the res because 1, res is a ability which charges pretty quickly, and 2, he wanted to switch to Ana anyway.
Now he swapped to Ana here. Saipe can expect to get a little bit more support. Mangachu perhaps a little bit less. But he's holding on to that barrage, so if he can catch compLexity a bit off guard, especially if they're clumped together here in the high ground, that could be big. Saipe diving right in. Where is Mangachu right now? Doesn't matter. The bomb connects, takes down 2. The barrage for a little bit of finishing power here. 3 unanswered kills here by Renegades as Mangachu gets away with 30 HP. Elevation is his friend when avoiding the laser of doom.
Well, it's very predictable where defenses hold on Dorado last. As I've said time and again, they hold that top left, but you know who also knows that? Jesus. And when you have a pulse bomb and a team clumped up like that, you're gonna find some pay dirt right there. Now they're very close to pushing this towards the end and setting a much better time. compLexity has to find something here to stabilize on D.
Well, a flank from Nicholas, that's a good way. Sherlocky biting dust immediately. So is Jared. Both supports out of it. A beautiful flank from Nicholas, going to stop Renegades. I don't think Renegades actually realized that Nicholas had snuck out in that left position. They were all at the spawn door, but Nicholas was already gone.
You have to be very confident in your flanks, because if you spend too much time trying to set up a flank, you can give up too much ground anyway. But Nicholas, very confident with his flank there, get some support, tactical visor up. They will try to regain this high ground. Of course, a win condition for compLexity on this map, stop them from closing out. And that would be terrible for Renegades, considering how they failed to stop the closing last time. High ground will be retaken by compLexity, both tank ultimates at the ready.
Saipe holding on to the Dragon Blade. We've seen Dragon Blade do work on this very point earlier today. We'll see if it's going to do it again. Saipe, though, eating the Bionade early on. Only 60 HP remaining. A mere sneeze would kill him, so he can't pull out the Dragon Blade here. 4v4, though, between both teams as against a payload. And Saipe now gets a Nano Boost. New life involved in him. Gets one. Soundbear can come out and hurt him a bit here, but it's not going to stop him from getting the skill. Or will it? No. He finds Nicholas, health station or no. But I don't know if enough has been done here by the offense. The defense is coming back in.
No, but does someone want to help Shake? He stayed alive against that Genji for so long, and none of this would have happened if someone just went up there and finished off Saipe, who was naded. Now Juvenile comes in. Saipe still alive on this point, and Earthshatter will go down, knock down a few. Mangachu does fall.
Mangachu, the victim of that Earthshatter. Decop going to get all sorts of powered up by Shake's Nano Boost. Nicholas trying to bring it back, 31 HP, able to deal with Saipe in the very end. And now Renegades down to a mere minute here, Hex. Real possibility of a hold by complexity and a map number 5.
Absolutely. 1 minute left. Only Mangachu with an ultimate available, though Saipe will have another Dragon Blade because he's simply been alive the entire time. Juvenile will be having his Primal Rage up. No one on complexity even close outside of Bishu, who oddly enough is now on the Tracer.
Saipe is pretty close to having a Dragon Blade here, so he might have a chance for redemption. Oh no, Jer just getting dunked on in over the top. He's already down. Nicholas, though, gives his life for that. Saipe, immediate punish. Mangachu, blown right up. Bishu with a special delivery. Saipe, though, all in. Dying to backline, supports in his sights. They're going to split, so only one will fall, and in fact, none will fall as Shake finishes off Saipe, and that might have just finished off Renegade's hopes of winning Dorado.
Jesus going to try to perform a miracle here as he gets the boost onto the cart. He is going to do his best. He's trying to get on this Reinhardt, unable to find the angle as he's eating a lot of damage. That boost will wear off, but he will rewind. Still holding on, not for long though, as he is stopped. Is anyone able to get to this cart to stall it out? Mangachu maybe.
Well, this fight leading to its final conclusion here. Renegades trying to keep it in, but they are dying left, right, and center, not able to stand the cart, and as a result, complexity gonna take Dorado here, evening up the series 2-2. And now if you're Renegades, you gotta be feeling somewhat tentative because complexity has a reverse sweep on the menu.
Bishu in the end there, turning on the Tracer. We've only really seen him play great on Azaria. I think he's not exactly comfortable on Winston. Had a good Tracer life, though. Very impactful Tracer life.
Anytime you can deliver a bomb to someone and take them out in that sort of situation, it's a good Tracer.
Well, this is Decop getting his moment in the sun, and we're highlighting these new complexity tryouts on tanks, and there's good reason. They've been playing really well.
There's no doubt about it. I mean, we've seen Decop with far more impactful Earthshatters than we saw anyone really impact play at all from KO or Chow. So, yes, these tryouts have been emerging much better with complexity.
Even to that extent, it's kind of funny because Chow also tried out Tracer to very minimal effect, which is putting it nicely.
All the
minimal
Reinhardts
effect
have to.
would imply that he did something well for complexity while on Tracer, which did not happen. All due respect.
Fair
Minimal, we're flexing the term minimal here a little bit with that, but to that point, let's look at Juvenile across the way as the opponent Reinhardt, because Decop did a lot of great stuff there. I think 3 or 4 good Earth Shatters, and he tends to know when to swing his hammer too, as you were talking about, like the aggression and then just taking some damage, that balance there. But how do they stack up against Juvenile, and how are his Earth Shatters in this one?
He got one.
Yeah, he got one. Juvenile, I feel like if there is a weak point on Renegades, I think he's probably the player, if there was a report card, would say needs improvement. He definitely has his moments, but I do feel like there's too many times where, whether it be on Winston, where he leaps in a little bit too far, and more so than you need to, because you can leap in and leap back out. He just kind of leaps in and dies many a time. And then he also has issues with Earth Shatters where he's trying to mind game the other Reinhardt too much and go, you're going to drop your shield here. I'm going to predict it. He hits shields more often than he gets the Reinhardt at a bad point. So I think there's points that he definitely could stand to improve on play-wise. Not that he hasn't had his good moments, but it's been hit or miss, I would say.
That said, I would give some credit to Decop, who, as early as last night, shut down Super in a lot of different moments, too. So Decop has been winning Ryan games against top Ryans.
Yeah, no, and honestly, he just seems to be gelling, if that's a term I can use, with this roster in ways that, we're seeing some results here. And yeah, the possible reverse sweep coming out from complexity as we're going to be going on to our final map, and I don't know if we have it yet. I don't think I've seen it.
It very well could be Eichenwald. Now, let me just say one thing here. If you're Renegades, you're actually not feeling very good at all coming to this last matchup, because the 2 maps they did won, they won it off of draws. It was very close play by compLexity. And the maps that compLexity won, of course, Nepal in a very dominant fashion, and their Dorado looks stronger, period. So you can make the argument that despite the fact that we're 2-2 here so far, compLexity has actually proven themselves to be the better team in actual play, which means that the onus on Renegades here, pretty heavy.
We did a good job of highlighting Torque, I think, before the night, because not only has his McCree play taken that step up, he's actually been playing McCree, which is a step in the right direction in my opinion, but he's been playing a good McCree. There was nice cleanup there, and he had a great Roadhog game. So Torque finally getting that level of consistency we need out of the DPS for them. You're going to need, at the very least, 2 consistent DPS threats to go far in this series. They may have to find a third here and there, but maybe that'll end up being one of their tank players. Who knows? But they've both been looking good. Torque has taken a big step up in my eyes tonight.
No, definitely. And now, honestly, looking at this squad, I'm now actually asking more questions about Immortals, not to like really steer us in another direction, because we've seen some shaky play from them. Let's leave that though for another day. I want to bring up one final point. And that is, I really got to give it to Joe. I think it was pretty fast paced there, but staying on the cart is something he did on Kings Row earlier as well. These sneaky cart pushes, and yeah, he's actually been making some stuff happen.
For Lucio, there's 2 things that you really want. One is not to be in the kill feed early as a first kill. That is probably the last thing you want. And then the number 2 thing you want is to have good sound barriers at well times that save your team. Joe Meister's been doing both of those pretty effectively. We haven't been seeing him in the situation where we go, Joe Meister died again first. That's not happening, and he's had very good sound barriers to save compLexity at key moments. So he's been having a pretty good game by Lucio standards, I would say.
Well, he's going to have another good one as it's all tied up. compLexity looking for the reverse sweep. Renegades, they are looking to dominate this one well, actually, they haven't dominated yet today, but we're on Eichenwald. This one was selected by Renegades. It was this or, the Sunshine of Hollywood.
Yeah.
And so we're going to be on the Sunshine of Germany, I guess, in this case.
We couldn't be lucky enough to have Hollywood twice in one night. That's clearly not going to happen, at least not in the OCS. We had a lot of Hollywood over the weekend.
Well, doing some of the research on compLexity before this tournament started, they're very good at hybrid maps. So either one, I think, would have given the advantage to compLexity early on. We are going to be on Eichenwald here. Do you see anything interesting on the defense for compLexity, ZP?
Defense-wise, it's not quite a standard defense. They are running a Reinhardt here, but they're leaving open the option to punish bad engages here by Renegades. They're running the Winston with the Tracer. So Torque is going to be in the backline for the most part, but you got to think that Bishu and Nicholas are going to be working more as a pair, where if they see, say, for example, Sherlocky a little bit out, they can both dive in at the same time and take him out.
I think Bishu is on the Winston precisely because they know the dive offense is incoming. I think he would rather play the Zarya, but Winston's going to be very good against Saipei and against those flankers coming in. And the dive offense is exactly what we see. Mangachu is going to be looking to come up over the top, probably hanging around this here, trying to pressure out the high ground, which you know the Soldier 76 is going to be on.
Mangachu coming in, and Renegades not wasting any time, diving deep into the thick of things here, and it succeeds. Decop goes down early on, and already compLexity struggling to find a way back into this. Mangachu looking for the pickoffs here in the back, almost gets a Soldier, but ends up getting slept, not able to finish his plate, and very well might get taken out, and he is. So, taking a look here, Nicholas trying to pull this back here for the defense, and this is just a room of death here for compLexity. They lose 3 people trying to take that room fight. Reinforcements are coming in, and though Torque is still up and alive and Decop has rejoined the fight, Renegades is enjoying the chaos.
They're trying to bring it back. If Jesus falls here, they might be in trouble on the offense as the spawns have been coming back in, although Decop falling is going to hurt them. Torque trying to even it up, takes down Saipei. Still a big brawl on the point as ultimates do start coming online. Nicholas takes out Sherlocky with his pulse bomb. Jesus still holding his.
compLexity doing a decent job of fighting this back. Decop might have died early, but he got back to the fight. Now you have Nicholas being the X Factor in and around. 3 deaths in room, not saying, but the special delivery comes in. Shake, blowing right up. Not gonna be a whole lot of sustain here for compLexity, but you have Vishu who's built up the Primal Rage already. That's going to be knocking Renegades back and giving compLexity more time to get back on the point. It's not quite as decisive as Renegades would have liked, even if they do end up taking this point, which isn't guaranteed, though 2 extra picks looking more likely.
It does seem more likely at this point in time, although there still are players from compLexity showing up in this kill feed. Decop got one, and now they're making them at least burn all their ults all the way through this, so giving them all they could handle on the defense. It will be Renegades finally bringing it back, but they had to use a barrage there late, some stuff they would have rather had going into this next push. Saipei's got to be very careful. Saipei not careful enough. Bishu takes him down.
There was no respect there for Bishu, and Bishu says, yeah, you probably should respect this a little bit more. Still, 4v4 on the point. Renegades trying to get immediate revenge there and just getting more control over the high ground. Now, they have to back out. compLexity's coming over the top, and here comes Attack Visor from the highest position in the game. Torque falling right down, gets on the Sherlocky, gonna pick up 2, make it 3. A well-executed Nano Visor there that Renegades didn't have an answer to.
They might be able to get Saipei. They're actually still going in on this. Jesus has switched off onto the Widow, unbeknownst to us. Takes out Shake. I don't think Shake saw it coming either.
Suddenly, there's a wild Widowmaker that appears, and Widow isn't too bad here in this point if you can get good sight lines. It can be pretty hard if you don't have the top, but once you get the top, you can really easily secure the point. Saipei, Dragon Blade out, dashes in the Joe Meister, 3 seconds left, looking for 76, finds Torque on the side. That is crucial. Good decision-making there by Saipei, and we'll see if this opens a way for Renegades as they try to bring this to Eichenwald second.
compLexity needs to regroup and take a moment here. Bishu's going to jump Saipei yet again because he's been doing it all game. Why not? Now he's going to go in a little bit deep. As his Reinhardt joins him, they have regrouped enough on the tanks, and Bishu has another kill onto Jesus. Mangachu finally makes him pay, but totally worth.
Mangachu under way too much pressure there. Inside the building, easy pickup there for Nicholas to finish him off, especially after the bio nade. So this is a little bit rough here for the offense. The offense is getting engaged on by multiple different levels. Nicholas, of course, being a threat in the back. Bishu finding very good opportunities to neutralize Saipei. And look at this, Nicholas again going for a sneaky pulse bomb.
They've been unable to take the high ground. Nicholas needs to get one of these supports. He's got Ana in his sights. There it is. That's a stick. Not going to be able to duel her way out of that one as Mangachu also goes down. Despite the composition that Renegades is running, they have had not even a sniff of controlling the high ground.
Not in the least, and in general, Renegades just looking tired here. I mean, I don't know if it's a part where they are potentially going to get reverse swept, but you got to think that the momentum of the last few maps going the way of compLexity, they're fired up at the chance of winning this, and Renegades, they're just making common errors in early pickoffs. Saipei, of course, dying twice for no reason. Good positioning by Bishu or not. And I don't know. We'll see if they can find a way through. Mangachu has a barrage up. Maybe he'll find a way in.
I retract everything I've ever said about Bishu's Winston. I don't know him well enough, but wow, he's had a good Winston game so far. Mangachu in trouble. He's going to find his way to the low ground, get this big pack. Attack Visor will come off and take down a few.
Torque moving in from the back. Nothing sneaky here, just good backline soldiering. Forces Renegades back again and gives Nicholas a chance to chase down the remnants. Now, Jesus does get the pulse bomb on the Bishu, but it's so late in the fight that I don't know if it's actually done anything.
It made Bishu sad, I suppose. That's what it did, as he's had some really good lives. But beyond that, impact game-wise, rather minimal. Maybe it opens it up for them to take this high ground, as Juvenile will follow it up, trying to get to the high ground himself. Like I said, they haven't had high ground. Nicholas has been in the backlines, misses that stick, still wants to get on Sherlocky and take down this Ana, but he bites off more than he can chew as Jesus comes in.
Renegades finally getting a little bit of momentum off that barrage and Tracer kill. 4 unanswered kills. compLexity, their aggressive defense finally starting to show some cracks here. They get wiped out in full. And now, this is whether or not they take the risk. Do they come out of these 2 tiny double doors to try and hold second? Because if they fail, they might give up third in one push.
I think so. I think with these tank ultimates that you can absolutely do it, but they're being pressed in the castle already. Now you don't. Now you definitely do not. This fight is over. Saipei.
Saipei finds a way through, quite literally, in over the top. The Dragon Blade finds 3, and now it's going to be Renegades taking full control of the second point, and they're going to have great momentum going in. Saipei just quickly like, gotta get back up here. Almost took a swim in the drink, and I don't know about this at all. compLexity's throwing good money after bad. They're charging up Saipei. They're charging up the ultimates of everyone on the Renegades team. That's a bad play call if there ever was one.
If you were able to keep one of your tanks alive out there, which seemed like what they were trying to do as Bishu popped his Primal Rage, then maybe you can go in there and hope to clean up on an Earth Shatter or something along those lines. Mangachu on the Bastion, the map is appropriate.
He's on the cart will do the movement for him. Mangachu looking to catch compLexity off guard here. Bishu's already on the Diva. He already has a great counter to this Hex. This might not work out the way Mangachu wants. Defensive Matrix right in Mangachu's face. Forces him out of turret mode for now. Gets nothing done. Bishu with an immediate counter to this play. And compLexity should be able to take this fight.
And the supercharged ride of Decop did something early on. The lore is real. Saipe taken out by an aggressive hammer swing there. It does seem like compLexity has finally stabilized despite throwing their bodies in outside of the gate. The gate has closed.
The gate is closed. Decop's going for a ride. And he gets up getting killed by Mangachu. Mangachu picking up 2 here towards the end. So Renegades still applying pressure here, not letting compLexity set up in front of those 2 doors. We'll see where this ends. Now, they've lost Shawaki. They're not going to have much of a healing, and Torque, with what could be a very much finishing tac visor here, takes down Jair and is just looking for anything in the back. Not able to get the second kill on the Saipe, but gets a little bit of aid from Bishu for that. compLexity will be able to re-solidify.
They will stabilize, and we're going down to the last attempt to close out the map for Renegades. Jesus, Pulse Bomb, Saipe, Dragon Blade, gonna have to get a lot for it, but Jesus going down very early. He will likely be able to rejoin the fight, but right now, 5v6, and they're gonna have a hard time breaking through these doors.
Bishu has had an enormous impact on this Diva.
He's had a great game.
There's no other way of saying it. Not only shutting down the Bastion, but finding kills on the Tracer, pushing back Renegades as they try and get back in here. It's been a very good game. Now, compLexity did swallow. No more Soldier, now the Winston. Saipe to the back line, uses the free dash from the ult to get back there, and he's just gonna sleep a full-on waste, a nice sleep dart. Rough times for Saipe. He really pushed that one too much and was punished.
Shake has always been a mainstay of this team, but now just hitting the beautiful dart, and they will stop them from getting last. I gotta say, regardless of what happens, this compLexity team looks like a brand new team.
The stakes have now been set. We don't really have to worry about another draw here. It's not going to happen with the payload falling right before last. One way or another, we are going to have our victor after this attack coming out here from the side compLexity. And if they are able to bring that payload to its final resting point by that old suit of armor, they will win the series and complete the reverse sweep. I can't overemphasize that enough, because compLexity, they were down 2 games. You don't see this happen all that often in Overwatch, though it did happen back in week 1. This is still a very big moment for compLexity and a very bad moment for Renegades, should Renegades fail to hold off this attack.
Going back to even King's Road, which opened this set, which was hours ago at this point, we talked about moral victories. At this point, there are no moral victories for compLexity. Bringing it all the way back and getting this close would be heartbreaking. Regardless of how good they've looked, regardless of how good the tanks have looked, this is one they want. This is one they need. They are already at the bottom of our standings in the Overwatch Carbon series, so a lot on the line early in day number 4.
Taking a look at the defense here for the side of Renegades as they sit up here. They're not going with anything tricky here at all, Hex. They will have Jesus here on the Tracer. That'll be a distraction in the back line, but other than that, it's going to be Saipe in the back, providing their DPS punch, Mangachu looking for hooks, and Juvenile on the Reinhardt. So no Symmetra Torb shenanigans. They want to win this very standard.
For a team known for Symmetra Torb, they will be going heavy on the tank on the compLexity offense. It appears Bishu on Zarya, Decop will play Reinhardt. Those are the new additions. Torque will play the DPS tank, the Fat Assassin in Roadhog. Nicholas, of course, running the single DPS on Soldier 76.
The gates are open and compLexity on the attack that could be Destiny here as they try and complete the reverse sweep. They're going to be moving out. Nothing too crazy about their attack as it's opening up. Torque could be looking for early pickoffs, but he's getting poked down very heavily early on. Not able to do, although he gets Lucio, so it's a 1-for-1 trade. It's not as bad as it could have been. Both teams trading out 4v4, and in fact, this favors compLexity just a bit.
Decop does swing the hammer, gets Jesus there as well, as most of the DPS now nullified for this Renegades offense. They try to push in. Saipe goes down. Shake, though, down. Mangachu has had a nice impact, but he seems not long for this world as he will finally fall. There it is as he does go down. An odd rotation has come out. These will probably just be very late deaths.
The key part there is that Torque, even though he died quickly and wasn't focused, he got Lucio early on and just started this chain of tit for tat here between both, where it was just trading off kills, and it worked out for compLexity.
Well, all right. That is compLexity. Now, on the attack with rather good progress here as they've gotten the cart moving forward.
They have it moving forward, and Jesus right now trying to bring this back a little bit for Renegades, being a distraction here in the back, trying to buy any bit of time, and yet you see compLexity able to consistently get kills moving forward here. Now, at this point, maybe they've broken through, but the respawn's right here. Renegades has to be careful not to throw away lives, and they do. Both Jesus and Mangachu going to fall on the payload at the end. And this is going to open up a lot of space for complexity to keep this moving forward. And Hex, you look at the time that they have a little under 5 minutes. Plenty of time for complexity here as they chase that comeback dream.
Getting pretty greedy up front, leaving only one back on the card. There's a grab. Do they have the follow through? They do. Not even using the whole hog. It looked like he wanted to use it for a second, but he does not. A one fight for complexity.
Complexity piling on the pressure. They only have one person on the payload here, though. That's the one downside about going in that aggressively. It's just Lucio hanging out by himself. You don't have the payload moving as fast as it otherwise could be. But Jesus, he falls again, trying to get in the Shake. Shake wins that one-on-one, and suddenly complexity with the real opportunity here. They're piling on. 3 unanswered kills. Nicholas looking for more, and complexity might be getting through this gate in record time.
They are burning through the supports of the opposing team, finding where all of the angles are. Another couple late kills. Jesus will kill Shake. He's been the only consistent part of the kill feed for Renegades, but it's not going to be enough. They're just going to park this card on second. Here comes an ambitious Dragon Blade from Saipe.
Saipe trying to be the hero now, trying to make anything go right for Renegades here. Oh no! That is a microcosm of this entire map. Saipe taking that long fall, an unforced error. Complexity on the verge of knocking down this gate. Bishu reigning victorious on top, and that gate is going to fall. 5 minutes left for complexity to finish out this map and get the reverse sweep.
And even after Saipe fell, Mangachu used a barrage. Now perhaps he covers that up by saying I was going to switch to Mei anyway, but it was an ult they did not have to use on top of an ult they already didn't have to use, but Mei can be very good at denying entry here.
He can be very good at denying entry, but not in the very beginning. You have to wait for the gate to drop. Graviton comes out here from complexity. They want to try and make this a win right now. They get Saipe, but they lose Shake. That's rough for actually maintaining momentum. They're going to use the sound barrier here as a stopgap. Will that get them the kills they're looking for? It's back and forth. That's not good for this early offense here into third. The sound barrier comes out here by Renegades. They're going to try and push this out right here and right now, and Juvenile ends up dying a little bit too far forward. And though it's back and forth, complexity showing signs of stabilization here, Hex.
Well, D-Cup goes down as he was very low. Hit with a nade. Joe Meister's going to make Jur pay for that kill. Bishu gets locked out right now, even though he has full charge. Going to be locked out by the Blizzard. Does not get much as it has been all complexity. Bishu's going to be able to charge up his Graviton very close as he closes out ultimate. It has been all complexity. Nearly 100% charge for Bishu as he's on his Zarya.
Here's the big thing for Bishu. Not only did he act as the main source of damage there, he almost has another Graviton. We're almost near the yellow box of victory. Renegades needs to get back out. This is going terrible for them. The hook comes in. The pushback is there, and it's complexity completing the reverse sweep, taking down Renegades. And what a monumental victory for complexity in the end. What a horrible loss for the Detroit Renegades.
We try not to have biases and fans, but I gotta say, a little bit of me was rooting for complexity there to bring it back in a reverse sweep. I'm always looking forward to game 5s. I like to see rosters retooled and have a little bit of success after that. And also, you have to know where the card is. I thought they still would have had a chance to stall that out with Renegades.
Possible, although it was a very good whole hog at the end to keep people off the payload when it really mattered.
Yeah.
Oh man, that is not good. You could probably tell the demeanor of Renegades by the part where you looked at the server and everyone immediately vacated. But that is a very difficult loss for Renegades, but such a monumental win for complexity, where complexity now, if they can defeat Team Liquid tomorrow, suddenly they're reinvigorated. They have playoff potential again. This is really big for them.
No, and it's huge, and it feels like, wow, at the 4th day, we shouldn't have such big, earth-shattering moments. But I mean, that's the only way you can describe it. I mean, do you think, looking at that Renegades team, they just lost momentum? Is this something where they got fatigued, quote unquote, over the course of the series? They just looked shaken up there at the end.
I would say that I try to avoid those arguments because I think they're a little bit simplistic. So I try and go into more detail. And the reality is that even when complexity lost the first 2 maps, they weren't losing by a very high margin. Both of those had to go in the tiebreakers, and it was complexity that evolved and adapted over the course of the series, and they took what was an even matchup between them and Renegades and turned it into something where they had a noticeable advantage.
I think there was part of them, and at least some players on the roster, that underestimated what Bishu and Decop could do several times. I mean, just specifically Saipe challenging him 1v1 versus a Winston, something that most Genjis won't do, and he paid for it twice. There was some feeding coming out late on the second point where they thought, it's just these tanks out here, we should be able to clean this up, and they couldn't.
Literally and figuratively, Bishu gained more power over the course of the series, where he had more key plays going on. And then you look at Azari at the end, fully charged up, lighting up the kill feed, building up 2 grabs for 2 fights in a row. That was tremendous play coming out from Bishu at the very end, and a big reason why compLexity has had their jump in play, where they started out week 1 0-2, they're starting out week 2 1-0.
Bishu's Battle Zarya absolutely having a huge impact there at the end. And I do want to say, just with one more final plug for Joe Meister, pushing that card by himself. And that was not the first time. I actually think we, in King's Row, we saw him pushing that little payload by himself. We saw it at least one more time. But no, back to more seriously, I really actually like the solid early rotation from compLexity on offense. They just kind of bodied out. Here we see this play for Joe Meister. Hashtag stay on the cart, please.
He stays on the cart. He gets that kill with the aid of the rest of his team and pushes it in. What more do you need from a Lucio?
But that's not even a cheesy play. He got 2 kills at the end.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, he just battle Lucio'd it.
Yeah, and actually, I mean, it was the supports. Both the supports were there, duking it out.
Right, but it lends to the fact that I feel they underestimated. Oh, it's just a Lucio on the cart, and they paid for it.
Yeah, you can never say it's only. If you're starting to say it's only in comms, oh, don't worry, it's only. Well, either way, but yeah, going back to that solid rotation, they basically because there were a couple of early trades, so it was fairly even. But Decop had his team behind him on the point, while the rest of the Renegades was a little bit disparate and spread out across the other side of the tower there. And they were able to get a very early first pick, and then they rolled it from there.
I'd say in comparison to some other teams, compLexity has made flanks work for them a lot more often, where they commit to it all the way around. And yes, that rotation worked, but kind of getting teams into odd spots. And then Nicholas's flanks all night on Soldier 76 always found pay dirt. He never put his team at a disadvantage because he was getting there on time and getting the ultimates off.
Well, that's the key point, is that he struck the right balance, because if you come in too early, your team's not ready, you're just going to die. If you come in too late, your team's already dead, you're just going to die. So for Nicholas, there was definitely good communication going on with the rest of his teams going, I'm coming around here, get ready to go in. And the flanks usually came in at the same time as the main attack, so it was a much more effective pincer move than what we saw from, say, some of Immortal's flanks the other day, where it was definitely more disjointed.
And I would also have to say that, Renegades, they were hyper-aggressive there at the end, and it paid off a few times, but I think that just left Nicholas open to have free reign of the healers, and he won a couple of those. He had at least one key bomb that was able to pick up Anna. But no matter which way you slice it, compLexity coming off very strong, and this really has shaken up the standings a little bit. I mean, it's actually I think we have a nice spread going on now, if I'm not correct. But Hammers, with their victory in Game 1, they have solidified their lead at 3-0. Renegades dropping this game. They're still looking towards the top of the pack there at 2-1. Followed closely by Immortals and compLexity and Luminosity, all at, Immortals will have a chance there at 1-1, but compLexity and Luminosity at 1-2, and then Team Liquid, they're 0-2 right now. They'll have a chance to find a victory tomorrow. But taking a look at the standings, is this where you thought we would be, ZP, at the end of day 4?
No, going into this, absolutely not. Renegades looked much stronger in week 1. And today they were just, in a word, inconsistent. They had really good fights, really bad fights. They weren't able to put anything together in a spree of dominance, as we know that they're capable of doing. And the reality is that we had rumblings of this yesterday, where compLexity was able to get through Renegades, and they've done it again. They've defeated Renegades now 2 days in a row. So you can't look at this and go, oh, it's just a fluke. compLexity almost got swept. No, compLexity has now defeated Renegades in series 2 days in a row, which makes you think that their new roster changeup is for real.
Yeah, and honestly, if I was, I'm like Liquid coming into this week, because they're going to be facing off against compLexity tomorrow. Originally, maybe I was thinking, oh, they're very inconsistent. The tanks are a little sketchy. and now they're facing off against what we just saw right now.
Well, we don't know what Liquid's lineup is going to be. So that is the one glimmer of hope that we've seen a new player or new players, etc., come back in and rejuvenize a team. So yeah, they have a shot, but having to play compLexity after what compLexity just did, and just to echo your point, had you asked me Saturday night what this series was going to be, I would have called it 3-0 quickly for Renegades without thinking twice about it, given how compLexity looked. Yesterday gave us a little preview, but we still had our questions about it. They look like a brand new team.
By the way, I remembered I do have one statistic I want to throw out there. We're talking about Mangachu on Bastion. Right now, 40% victory rate. Out of 5 attempts. Now, I will say, the only 2 times it was successful, they were already rolling through the end.
I'm going to say I actually hate that statistic. I think it is a terrible statistic because you have to judge it on the fights. From the fights we've seen, he's gotten wrecked every time. So what does it matter if they win that? We're judging the tactic on itself.
I know. He's probably... that's like trying to get that play of the game. It's like, we're already maybe going to win this one. I'm going to jump on, and then everyone will know how awesome it is. Well, it's not going to be awesome until maybe the patch drops.
Statistics in Overwatch require a great deal of context, which is why we don't have scoreboards and things like that.
Here.
I just was like, what does it matter if it's failed every time?
No, I know.
It's like, that means they can win in spite of it. Like, okay.
That's really what that 40%, it's like, it really is 60-40-0. So it really worked 0% of the time. They already were going to win 40% of the time, and then you've got that 60%. But anyway, well, I wanted to call out a few more things. So I feel like today could be described best as the day of gauntlets being picked up. We threw down a lot of gauntlets. We threw down gauntlets for compLexity in general. And we threw down gauntlets for Ube and his Tracer and Genji. Like, still some questions there. But Torque with McCree, he picked that one up. And then even Saipei, we've seen some plays from Saipei, but we were wondering how consistent he'd be. And maybe a little bit of inconsistencies, but there were a couple of really good plays as well.
Again, with Saipei, I think it comes down to what support setup is being run with him. I don't think Mercy on the Pharah is giving your Genji a whole lot of room to work with, because what is the Genji going to get healed by? If you're diving deep enough that the Lucio isn't near you, nothing's going to be able to save you, and they're not even running a Zarya with it, so you're not running best friends with Genji when Saipei is running it half the time.
Also, I think Ube could be put in that same way, talking about the support setups that he had. When they had the set play of, we're going to run a Transcendence with your Dragon Blade, he had great effect, and he did his part there to take down Rob, who could spoil that Transcendence. So both of them, in the context of what they're asked to do, can do good things on that. I think the person who just picked it up on his own and didn't put it down was Torque. I mean, and that's been a question for compLexity that we have had for a while. Are the DPS consistent? Nicholas answered a little bit. He's been much more consistent overall on his play. Torque picked it up, and there's no telling what this team can do, but it's always been a team that has been based on how well can their DPS play, but now it might be how well their DPS can play with these tanks, and you've got pretty underrated supports as well. Joe had his breakout day. Shake's always been good, so now you look at this lineup based on what we've seen, at least today, compLexity looks like their roster is very strong.
Yeah, we need to see that over a little bit longer period of time, because part of me thinks that, so like Renegades are coming into this and they have just been playing a hyper aggressive play style for DPS, and it seems like the other teams, compLexity included, have figured that out to some extent, and maybe Renegades need to go back to the drawing board, put together the tools. They have a lot of great tools to make sure that they have more that they can bring to the table, but we've got more time to actually see how some of these things pan out. So let's talk about the schedule for the rest of the week. We saw it earlier today, but tomorrow we're actually going to watch Team Liquid face off against compLexity in game number 1, which is rapidly becoming one of my favorites of the week to watch. And then that's followed by Immortals versus Hammers, which is 2 teams we expected to be on the top here. I think maybe the story of that game is, what can Immortals bring? Because right now they haven't been looking very strong. And then to complete the week on Wednesday, Renegades versus Luminosity and Team Liquid versus Immortals. What are your thoughts now after day 1 of week 2 going into days 2 and 3?
Team Liquid is arguably facing elimination tomorrow, and they're going up against an incredibly tough opponent. Team Liquid, I don't favor them going into that. I think it's going to be very difficult for them to win, but they must find a way to win if they want to continue doing well in the OCS. On to the second match there, when you take a look at Immortals versus Hammers, 2 of the very top teams in North America. They give us a great show every time. I don't expect tomorrow to be any different.
Immortals versus Hammers, I echo your thoughts, of course, on compLexity versus Liquid. Liquid could just be eliminated from the tournament almost de facto tomorrow. But Hammers, a new style. Immortals, a very standard style. That's what they've been very good at. And it's kind of the team that we thought was going to be number one versus the team that proves time and time again they are number one. Hammers does have the ability to run several different styles where I'm not sure Immortals has that same capability. They run their 1 or 2 styles. They run them very well. They're very practiced in them. So it's going to be a style clash between those two teams.
Well, you know what? We are going to find out how these teams can interact with each other tomorrow night, and you guys can be a part of it as well. Definitely stay tuned. We're going to go live tomorrow at 5 p.m. PST. Definitely be following us on Twitter because we're going to have some nice hype videos and some replays we're going to post on there. And I would also check out carbon.gg/OCS. That's where the schedule is. That's where the standings are. That's going to be your hub for all things OCS. And of course, tune in on Twitch tomorrow. Gil Frost here. Any closing remarks from our favorite weatherman?
For me, I'm just looking forward to tomorrow. Mortals versus Hammers should be great. And this compLexity squad, very interesting to watch after their changes.
I hope it doesn't snow tomorrow. I know you're asking him, but I'll take it.
Weatherman number 2 here.
Sure.
That's like the hopeful weatherman here. I hope it doesn't snow. I think that's what we all kind of want is some positivity from our weather people. Well, let's go ahead and call it at that. A long night, a lot of great games. More games yet to be played here at the Overwatch Carbon Series. We'll talk to you all tomorrow.
Trouble actually going in. The multi-war is going to be used, but Shake falls immediately. Saipe finally finding way through. Makes it through the hole, off the back line. Here comes the barrage. Caught. 3 kills here from Mega from the ult to get back there, and he's just going to sleep a full-on waste.
Sweet start to clean up Saipe right here. They're going to stagger him.
We're not thinking, only gets the points at Graviton, but it is going to maybe lead to a kill. It does. Nicholas comes in from the back at the last moment. Big bang.
Rotate up top, but Torque takes him out. Torque is going to bust this visor.